Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream, and this one's going to be an absolutely packed stream. There's going to be a lot to talk about. So of course we're pretty much wrapping up Computex 2026, of course celebrating the ASUS ROG 20th anniversary, and there was a huge number of other products outside of the 20th anniversary edition product announcements to also go along with Computex, and even actually a couple of little things that maybe some of you might have not even realized that we actually ended up showing off at Computex, including like a really cool actually innovation demo that we have for some of the stuff that we've been working on the graphics card side. So there's going to be a lot of things to cover in today's stream, but yeah, in today's stream we're going to be talking about all of the new 20th anniversary edition product announcements for ROG. We're going to be talking about a broad number of actually announcements that we have across kind of the ASUS lineup, some new cool mini PC stuff. We've actually got an update to Z890 BTF based motherboard that some of you might not even realize that we actually had an update. Some really cool, interesting non-gaming displays, including actually our first announcement for an actually e-color based display, which I'm really excited about. A lot of other really cool stuff packed in. So let's see who we have joining us for today in the stream. We'll get ready to go ahead and kick things off, but yeah, we've got a lot for today's stream. So we've got the one, the only, we've got Suman joining us. Fantastic, man. Happy to have you here. Happy Friday, man. Hope you're doing well. Best to you and yours. We've got Neymar joining us as well, man. Fantastic. Happy to have you here as well. It's still the afternoon for me. It's 3:30 for me, but wherever you might be, man, hope you're having a fantastic Friday. So thank you so much for joining us here on the stream. Neymar says we need a taller and wider next-gen Hyperion. Wow, the Hyperion's already a really big chassis, so I don't know about making it even taller or wider. That would be kind of wild. That would be like a super elite kind of chassis. And keep in mind, of course, we do have the upcoming excuse me, the Chronox that'll be coming up. So if you kind of want that more large kind of immersive type of display, then that might be something great for you to kind of consider. Hey Ed, happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us also on the stream. Great to be able to have you join us here. Let me know, everybody, if the audio levels sound like this is the same audio levels that we had from last week, so I think it should be pretty solid, but somebody says it's a little bit low. If you want me to go ahead and increase it a little bit more, let me know. But overall, I think everybody was saying was okay on that side. Hey man, happy to have you joining us also on the stream. Fantastic. Thank you so much, right? Chronox is not tall. I think it depends, right? It's significantly taller than this, which would still be an ATX chassis, and it's still taller than some of our other ATX-based chassis, but it's all relative, right? There's a lot of different variability in that regard. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us here on the stream, Erica, letting us know that everything is sounding good on that side. So let me see right here. Suman goes, can't wait to get the 20th anniversary edition products. Already pre-ordered the keyboard and the mouse. Wow, you're going to get the Harp and the Azoth Extreme. Yeah, those guys are going to be absolute stunners. So let's get ready to go ahead and kick things off, guys. We got a lot to pack in, so I don't want to take too much time. So let's just get straight into it. Before we get into the 20th edition anniversary announcements, which I think a lot of you probably are going to be interested in, if you guys didn't catch those, we'll be kind of rolling through them. I'll be hopefully calling out, I think, the kind of more little interesting details that you might have maybe missed if you didn't kind of get all of those details. But we will be also recapping all of the new display announcements. So even the ones that weren't part of, course, the 20th anniversary, because we had multiple ROG products that we also announced there, we'll be covering those as well. So guys, if you're wondering about everything, just make sure to kind of watch the stream, watch for timestamps, things like that after the fact if you're watching this in terms of the VOD, and we'll kind of go from there. But one of the cool things that I want to touch about before we get into 20th anniversary announcement was actually an innovation showcase. So one of the things that we tend to do at Computex is, and actually a lot, we generally tend to do this at some of our larger kind of specialized kind of trade show events, is going to be kind of showcasing new types of features, functions, or designs that we find kind of interesting or compelling in terms of kind of the PCDIY initiative. And so one of the really cool ones that we actually showed off was a new concept for actually power delivery for actually graphics cards. So traditionally right now, most of you are aware that 12 volt is kind of the primary power solution that's pretty much used for the majority of your components. When you talk about actually your power supply is utilizing multiple pathways for power delivery, right? You've got 12 volt, you've got 3 volt, you've got 5 volt. And there had been some discussion in the prior kind of generations of like going to only 12 volt. There's some issues with that, predominantly because actually so many secondary microcontrollers and different devices might actually rely, as well as actually certain kind of onboard componentry that might leverage kind of 3 volt and 5 volt that can actually make it difficult to kind of transition singularly to only a 12 volt based ecosystem. But that being noted, one of the things that we've actually seen, if you look at it kind of adjacent industries, is if you actually look at the automotive industry, which has done electrification, is that you've moved to, of course, significantly higher voltage levels like 48 volts. And the main reason why is because this allows for actually better efficiency, reduction in actually resistance, and you actually get much better temperature performance, especially at the contact points where you're providing such high power. When we talk about graphics cards, of course, as many of you know, that when you're talking about the highest performing GPUs, you can definitely be going into very high power limits, right, in terms of actually what the card is going to consume. So actually one of the cool things that we showed off was actually a prototype concept where we have a power supply that we have for our ASUS power supply design with actually a dynamic switching design going from 12 volt to 48 volt power, and then working actually with a specialized graphics card design that's actually designed to operate at 48 volt power. Now the really cool thing about this is that it actually allows for a significant reduction in actually the contact temperature. So for those of you that are kind of wondering like, well, hey, not only do we get the ability to even be able to drive much higher levels of power to the card, but we really eliminate one of the key kind of concerns that can happen as you really start to increase the amperage per pin and the overall kind of power that you're driving to the card. So you get an actually benefit of being able to drive even higher levels of power, but you can significantly reduce the temperature contact. So let's actually go ahead and show you guys a little bit here. I think I actually have some images from some of our friends over the media that actually took a look at to show this off here. So let's go ahead and yeah, we'll bring this up here. Let me go ahead and load this up. There we go. Okay, perfect. And we'll go ahead and share the screen here. So this is, I believe, from our friends over at Computex. That went ahead and took this screenshot, so credit over to them. But you can actually see right here in the demo, so we're actually using an ROG Astral, so it's an ROG Astral 5090 that was set up and configured. You can actually see right here that the actual input voltage is actually being shown at 48 volts versus the standard 12 volts, right? And you can actually see that we're driving a significantly higher level of wattage. Now, in most situations, you know, the graphics card is not going to be even using actually a 600 watt power delivery design, right? It's actually going to be generally a bit under that. And as some of you guys know, we already had kind of a specialized design with cards like our Matrix card, which actually was using both the BTF and the 12 volt high power connection to actually be able to have a maximum up to 800 watt power delivery, which gave you even a higher level of performance. But the really cool part is through the combination of this is that we can actually really reduce the overall level of amperage that's distributed across each pin header. And this also reduces the actual temperatures that we have for those contact points. So when you kind of combine this together, I think with everything that we're looking to kind of implement, some of these things not only from more advanced specialized designs on the graphics cards, right? Things like the ROG equalizer, high quality power supply solutions, a move to 48 volt. We're continuing to not only want to try to maximize performance, but also be kind of cognizant of how can we make sure to give you reliability and performance and combine those things all together. Now, this is not a finalized product, so this is just a concept that kind of we wanted to be able to show off. You can again see right here that the overall connection, this is in a water-cooled based configuration, but it would be the same, doesn't matter whether we're talking about air-cooled or water-cooled. Again, this is just a concept-based demo option, but similar kind of in the past where we've shown off items like BTF when it was originally just shown off as a concept and then transitioned later into a finalized product. This is something that you could actually see come to the market. And again, this is the other cool thing about, I think, ASUS being vertically integrated, that we're producing kind of all of those key components within the ecosystem, right? We're making everything from the chassis to the motherboard to the graphics cards, right, to the power supply solutions. So we have a really kind of comprehensive understanding of where are all the areas that we can help to kind of maximize performance, the DIY experience elements, and try to improve upon those elements for the user's experience. So I'm actually really excited about this. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts is. And again, the really cool part with the concept design that we showed off is that the power supply that we have actually was both a 12 volt and 48 volt. And essentially when it interfaces with a compatible 48 volt base graphics card, it would automatically switch into that. So you could kind of have like, let's say a foundation that would work towards kind of a future proof. So let's say you weren't necessarily ready to adopt in at that time, but then later on you wanted to get one of the newer GPUs that had that 48 volt base connection, then you would be able to actually have that support. Similar to kind of like what we did with the new BTF generation graphics cards, where those BTF based graphics cards actually can work in legacy motherboards, but then they also have the included adapter that allows you to utilize them in BTF based systems. So overall, I think this is a pretty cool item here. And again, here you can see the actual reduction in terms of the actual amperage per pin. It's actually quite a substantial notable reduction in terms of the amperage per pin compared to actually the 12 volt implementation. So overall, again, I think a pretty cool showcase and something you guys might have not realized that we showed off. And again, credit to Computex for actually sharing these images over that I'm showing you from our actual events team over at Computex for the 2026 ROG showcase for this kind of little innovation demo that we had there. So pretty cool. So let me go ahead and quickly see any quick questions that might have popped up on that side. So he says, bring it on for the GPU. So keep in mind that you wouldn't actually be changing. So the demonstration that we showed there is you're still actually utilizing the same physical connectors. So the same connector, the cable that you're actually utilizing. Do I actually have one? I think I have one. I had one over here. Sorry, I was building a demo system, so I had actually a cable. But either which way, the cable actually maintains itself. But I think one of the main factors you actually have to consider of why you would want to essentially maintain the same cables already. There's a lot of infrastructure that already exists, and the main issue that you generally have right now is, of course, is that kind of increase in the thermal contact, right? And that occurs not only by the amount of power that you're driving in, but also by resistance. So the great thing is essentially with this type of design, we really kind of resolve the main pain point that is generally causing that. Now, you could still have to factor in, actually making sure that you have physical, reliable connections, but that's true for any type of connections you have in the system. Even if you go back to kind of prior 6-pin or 8-pins, if people were kind of leaving their connectors actually not kind of reliably fully seated, then you could actually still end up with a contact issue that could actually cause problems over time, and that could actually include similar kind of incidents that have occurred with the 12-volt high power connector. But overall, I think through the combination of everything that we're kind of implementing, we're really kind of going into a whole new level that would really offer users, I think, just even a more compelling experience, and again, a more performant, more reliable type of experience. So we'll see. I think this could be pretty interesting. So yeah, we'll see ultimately how it plays out. Hey Jason, fantastic, man. Total domination at Computex 2026 with ASUS and ROG. I think pretty cool, man. Yeah, so let's go ahead and keep moving that along. So that was just one of the cool little showcases that I wanted to show you guys there. I do also want to go ahead and show off two little just quick motherboard announcements before we get into the 20th anniversary. Nothing super crazy or big, but I thought that these were pretty cool because, again, they might kind of slip a little bit below the radar. So let me go ahead and bring these up. So the first one is going to be is that we do actually have a soft update for actually Z890 based motherboards. So originally I told you that there was no immediate plans to actually have any refreshes, and overall we don't have a broad refresh available for Z890. We already have a fantastic lineup of Z890 and B860 based motherboards, but for those of you who may be evaluating building the BTF based ecosystem, we did have essentially two BTF based models, right? We had the higher end ROG based variant, but here we're now also going to be adding in a black tough gaming based variant, which I think is pretty cool. So let me go ahead and just show you this one here, guys. So this is going to be the Tough Gaming Z890 BTF Wi-Fi 7. So again, I think this is just a great option to be able to kind of give you those two different positions. If you really want to go to that really premium higher end based experience, then you can go with the ROG based Z890 BTF based model, and then alternatively you now are going to have a Tough Gaming Z890 BTF based model, right? And again, keep in mind that for the BTF based graphics cards with a standard BTF based motherboard, you can use standard GPUs, or you can use the BTF based you can use the BTF based graphics cards, and all of the modern 50 series BTF based graphics cards, again, like I talked about before, have interoperability to work with older motherboards as well as the current BTF based motherboards. So this is, I think, a nice little update. And then I think for those of you who are watching the stream, you might be already familiar with it, because I gave you guys a little bit of a teaser, but we will also have one update on the mini ITX side that we will have. So there's one more Neo Edition based motherboard that we will be releasing, and that's going to be this guy. It's going to be the Tough Gaming B850-i Wi-Fi Neo. So this will supplement, of course, our current two AM5 based motherboards that we have on the mini ITX side. So we have an ROG X870 based mini ITX motherboard, and then we have an ROG Strix B850-i motherboard, and this will be now the new Neo designation. Now keep in mind, with the new Neo, you get a couple of other cool benefits that have been introduced. Now the ROG Strix models will still have some more advanced kind of feature set because those are ROG based models, but one of the cool things that this one will have is has the bigger option ROM. So because of the bigger option ROM, you have that new UEFI interface that's been implemented in there. You're also going to have that Wi-Fi driver that's also going to be pre-installed within the unit. But I think for a lot of guys, this is going to be a fantastic option, and again, kind of gives you a 3-tiered level that we'll have now within the AMD mini ITX based ecosystem. And there's actually also a white variant that I previously kind of talked about that some of you guys might have not remembered about. So technically, actually, there's going to be like 4 variants that we have overall. So we've got the two actually Tough Gaming black and white variant, and then we have, of course, the B850-i ROG Strix variant, and then we have the X870 version. So actually a total of 4 mini ITX based solutions under the AM5 based ecosystem. Okay. Michael says, get rid of all those different. And so just to kind of answer this, I don't want to kind of take up too much time kind of talking about this, but one of the challenges when you talk about saying that, hey, you want to get rid of all that, that's kind of similar to what was talked about with the 12-volt high power design. When you talk about only kind of singular 12-volt high power, the main issue that you actually really see with kind of taking that type of approach is that there's a lot of secondary microcontrollers, even things like a lot of ARGB controllers that you might use supplementally in your ecosystem. They actually utilize generally like 3-volt or 5-volt space connection signals. There's even other type of circuitry that you have on the motherboard that are sometimes going to redrivers or other items that utilize that. And the reality is that there's a lot of kind of built-in supply chain that is not practical to kind of just throw it out. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't be possible, but the complexity to do it would require a huge undertaking. And then the real return value proposition is, does it really make sense to do it? Because it would add less choice to the consumer and add more complexity and more cost, because you would also be really kind of isolating the board down to only one specific base option versus kind of cross leveraging other base choice. I think that kind of the goal over time is that it would make sense to intelligently incorporate spec or feature or function designs that really kind of see a pathway to benefit the user. I think a similar approach to this is you see this with even specialized like motherboard design, where not all motherboards were utilizing things like SMT production because that's a more costly, more advanced production, but it did have certain types of benefits, right? This is similar to different types of kind of low loss PCBs versus kind of mid loss based PCB designs. And there's many other kind of areas. It doesn't make sense to kind of unilaterally sometimes have a unilateral kind of rule that applies to everything, because again, it could end up actually hurting maybe a broader segment of the user audience, right? Now, that doesn't again mean that maybe there couldn't be an option that eventually would be released, maybe in specific type of configurations, maybe that having that kind of more simplified option could be maybe more sensible, right? An example has previously been pitched as maybe something like a really tightly integrated kind of optimized small form factor based design, right? Maybe that could be a pathway, right? But there's a lot of different kind of always options that we're evaluating, considering, and I think a lot of it is really just driven by the wants and needs that we see by the community, as well as kind of the relative market demand, right? But yeah, let's go ahead and continue forward with this, and we'll keep going right there. Oh, fantastic, man. I own a Maximus Extreme, man. Well, thanks for being Team ROG. Fantastic to have you joining us here on the stream, right? So very, very cool. So let me go ahead and start to go into, I think, the 20th anniversary based products. Again, if anybody has any questions or stuff there, feel free to go ahead and drop them in there. We're going to go ahead and jump into the ROG 20th anniversary. Now, for some of these, I'll spend a little bit more time to highlight some of them. For some of these, it's going to be more of an aesthetic design differential, and some of these have a more kind of feature design differential to them. So that's where I'll kind of try to spend the time highlighting if there's something that's respectively kind of a little bit more distinct there for that. So let me go ahead and bring up my folders here. Where do I have? Sorry. Edition 20 series. Okay, so I think the first guy that we'll go ahead and start off with, I think makes sense, is of course, let's start off with the motherboards, right? Actually, there's only one. Well, there's technically two motherboards, right? We already talked about the anniversary, not the anniversary edition, but kind of to celebrate the 20th anniversary, we had the ROG Crosshair 2006, which was kind of like the throwback or the retro design-based model, which we previously talked about. Fantastic update that we have to the AM5 lineup. But the first kind of full edition 20 board that we're going to have here is going to be, of course, now an extreme base variant. So this is going to be that board. Absolutely stunning, if you ask me. Now, maybe actually one cool thing that before we go to this, actually, I want to touch a little bit on the color scheme. So actually, our ID team generally has special kind of rule sets that we put in place when we're kind of designing and developing the overall ID design for different types of products. And so I thought some of you guys might be actually interested to see this information. So let me actually show you what the color percentage breakdowns are in terms of kind of when we were designing the 20th anniversary design scheme. So you'll actually see when you're taking a look at the 20 edition, edition 20 series products, is going to be ROG Black 70%, so that's the largest percentage of kind of quote unquote the color representation you see in the product. Of course, ROG really has had a hallmark history with red. Now, of course, if you look back at the very first original ROG products, they didn't have any red, but we slowly transitioned, and pretty much almost for like about 10 years, ROG had a lot of red. That was always the cornerstone. I think at one point, red was a very, very kind of hallmark hallmark color for ROG. We even saw competitors in the industry copy the color scheme, identifying their products with red for gaming kind of segmentation, before I think we again redefined and went to kind of a more monochromatic color scheme approach, where we were really focused on blacks and then white. And then I think right now we unequivocally have the broadest ecosystem in the industry for both black and white based kind of gaming products, and we continue to set kind of the look and feel bar for I think how products can be perceived in terms of kind of their design and their feel. But yeah, you'll see 70% for the black, 2% for the red, and then you'll see kind of that transparent elements is the crystal lens elements that we call crystal lens. That's 18%, and then that gold, which just adds that little bit of that flourish, that little bit of that premiumness that's there. Similar to kind of, I would say, how you see that on Pro Art. When you see Pro Art, when you have that gold accent, it really just kind of elevates to give it a little bit more of that kind of premium aesthetic. Right there is that we have 10% in with the radiant gold. So that's actually the composition. So you'll notice you're never going to see a huge amount of the red because it's a very small percentage. Same thing, the gold is just there as kind of like an accent, but it's definitely apparent. And I think the two strongest ones you actually will see will generally be the elements of kind of that sheen and that transparency from the crystal lens, and then of course from the black, right? So yeah, I thought you guys might find that interesting, but let's go ahead and take a look at the board. This is going to be the Crosshair, essentially the Extreme base model, but the Edition 20 base model. So what is really unique here, of course, is you're going to see right off the bat is going to be the overall ID design. I think it absolutely looks fantastic in terms of the overall ID design. Looks really, really great. But this unit actually will come included. It will be a kind of a combo pair with actually a special edition RYUJIN Edition 20 based cooling solution. So this is quite interesting because it's almost like a hybrid and even a more advanced version, where we're taking actually kind of like an element from the Ryu 4, which is our own separate kind of standalone cooler. We kind of put that together with the performance of the RYUJIN 3 Extreme. This has actually a 40mm thick radiator, ultra high performant, of course, fans for that outstanding static pressure and airflow, the most cutting edge ASUS EMA based pump design that we have in there, and then that massive actually swivelable, it has a swivel based functionality to the actual 6.67 inch AMOLED OLED display on there. So this will be packed in all together. And then the kicker, for those of you guys that of course are familiar with the latest generation based motherboards that we have, is that this being a Neo motherboard, it of course has that quick AIO connector. So this actually motherboard combo will actually be a cable free experience. So that means that of course the cooler and the motherboard, they pretty much talk together. Those contact pins will then be able to go ahead and manage everything from the signal for the display, the RGB management, the fan, the pump, all of that, the power, it's all handled through those set of pins. So pretty much you just slot in your CPU, you mount the actual cooler bracket, and then those pins make the contact points and you're good to go. So it's a super seamless experience. Absolutely, of course, flagship level performance. This is the best you can get in terms of the best motherboard, the best cooling solution. You use those together, and then you have that amazing overall aesthetic from just the look and feel that you have. Absolutely a massive 6.67 inch display. Now, part of the reason why we also incorporated the swivel based design is to give some more flexibility in terms of the visibility and how it's positioned within the chassis, but also kind of one of the hallmark elements of the Extreme Edition board was that big, beautiful 5-inch display that we had on the motherboard, which was actually here in the left hand section. So of course this cooler combination, we kind of wanted to even go bigger and bolder, so that's the reason why we removed that type of display interface, and then we're leveraging the display that we have now on the AIO based design. But of course it doesn't stop there. We have a specialized synchronization display element, where if you go really crazy and you go to the absolute peak of, you know, high-end configurations, you pair this up with the new, of course, ROG Astral Edition 20 base model, then you will actually have a synchronized display that actually goes from the primary AIO display to the actual display that's also on the ROG Astral that we've incorporated for the Edition 20. But yeah, all the other features and functions, I won't spend time talking about all the specialized motherboard design elements, again, because these will be the same as pretty much what we have on the Extreme Edition board right now. So you get all the amazing stuff, cutting edge best PCB design out there, the NitroPath DRAM technology, the DIMM.2 add-in card, the dual locking design element that you kind of had that was implemented on the Glacial model, right, which is really, really cool. That new kind of cover plate, and you can also keep in mind that I love this cover plate design because this will be kind of like what we also leverage from the Glacial model. So the Glacial model gives you that magnetic cover plate design that you can pop that off, and then you could, you know, put that on your desk and have that beautiful kind of what we called the Magna plate on the Glacial model. You could have that, and you could have that on your desk. So some really, really cool just design elements that kind of bring this together overall. But I think this is a great way to, of course, kick off the Edition 20 with, of course, the Extreme Edition, Edition 20, which also comes with that RYUJIN Edition 20 base cooler, right? So pretty sweet on that side. Don't have any pricing right now for any of these models. These are just the finalized announcements. So pricing, of course, once we get a little bit closer to the actual channel availability releases for these guys, we will disclose that information, and we'll have that quickly covered, I think, within another follow-up PC DIY stream. You, of course, can also check out the 20th edition launch page, which has a link to all of the corresponding products and goes to each respective product page. And then when the prices go live, you'll also see that from a notification side. Let me go ahead and quickly see if there's any quick questions on this one before I get to the next product right there. So give me 1 second. All right. Let me see here. Sorry. I just got the ROG Falcion A75, of course, Hall Effect Ace, and the Harp 2 Ace on my peripherals, even though they, yeah, no, that's an awesome combination, and I love the Falcion. Feels really, really good for, you know, a quote-unquote Hall Effect based keyboard, so I think it's a great balance where you get that kind of really super focused kind of actuation customization experience, which if you're going to really dial into that, that's a fantastic base option, as opposed to something like, let's say, the ASUS series, right, which I'm a big fan of, right? Thanks for being a supporter on that side. Hey, Michael, man, fantastic. Thank you for joining us here on the stream, right? So let me just quick see right here. So great board tour ad already. Have the ROG 2006. Glad. That's a tough call. You know, for me, I think I would probably, I love so many things about the kind of the Edition 20 Extreme board and the Glacier board. But I think if I was to pick a board, right now I have the Dark Hero. But that Crosshair 2006, it just hits different, and I love that retro color scheme, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm with you, man. I think the Crosshair 2006 would be my go-to because I just love that ID design. I think it looks really, really cool. Plus, I also love that that's an ATX-based motherboard, so it fits more comfortably in any chassis configuration. Well, when you go with an eATX-based motherboard like what we have there, or even the Glacial or even the Extreme-based model, it kind of limits you. You have to really make sure that you've got a chassis that can comfortably fit an eATX-based motherboard. It's actually one of the most slept on elements that I think a lot of people forget about the Hero, that even quote-unquote competitors that try to make motherboards to compete with the Hero, often they try to compete making an eATX-based model compete with our ATX-based model, and it takes a huge amount of design work to pack everything that we do within the Hero model and keep it only in ATX form factor. But I really love that because it gives you the broadest level of kind of chassis flexibility when it comes to kind of putting them in there. I got my ROG Cetra TWS, just took a wash in the washing machine. Would you recommend something now? So I'm sorry to hear about that, man. If you have the first generation unit, of course, we have the later generation Speed Nova based models, and then we also have the Open Cetra Wireless, which actually recently came out. So, I mean, those are two great options that I would recommend that, you know, if you're looking to update, that you would consider. I can tell you right now on the roadmap, we don't have anything immediately on the roadmap that would be replacing what we have within the Speed Nova edition or with the Open Cetra. So if you're looking to be able to pick up a replacement, don't worry about kind of like, oh, like next month you're going to see a new one pop out and you kind of be like, oh man, I should have just waited. But man, thanks for your support previously. Okay. Let me go ahead and quickly see any question that might kind of popped up there. Still no live streaming option for the AIO, but it is something actually I will be passing back over to the team for some feedback right there. Look, okay. So that sounds good. So let's go ahead and go to our second product right there. So again, oh, actually, let me go ahead and drop in the links for you guys. I will drop in the links for each one of these in there. So we'll go and we'll drop the link in for the Crosshair Edition 20. It will drop it into the chat. And again, keep in mind for this Crosshair Edition 20, that comes bundled with that RYUJIN 36020 AIO. So it's a combination. So again, if you kind of want one of the anniversary based boards, although it won't be that black and gold and the red and the transparent kind of ID design, will be a little bit different with the 2006 base edition. That's where we have the Crosshair 2006 base edition. And of course, if you still just want something super premium that looks fantastic, we of course got the ROG Strix Neo board, which recently launched, which I think is a fantastic option. Or of course, you have the Dark Hero. So there's quite a number, of course, ROG options that you have available to you based on whatever your kind of preference is or whatever your budget might be, or the look and feel that you kind of might be looking for, right? Okay, so let's go to the next product. Next product here, we're going to go with the graphics card. So again, this is kind of makes sense, kind of pairing these two here. So this is going to be the ROG Astral GeForce RTX 5090 Edition 20. This actually, I had somebody talking with me about this before, but I think we have probably made more ROG Astrals in this generation than I think we've ever made for any generation. So I've been now with ASUS, I think almost 18 years, almost since the very beginning of ROG, which has been pretty exciting. And I don't think we've ever actually had that many variants of kind of one card design, where we've had here so many different variants, right? From everything from, of course, to the white, to the black, to the you know, to of course the Nub Edition, to the AIO, to the Matrix, right? You know, so many different actually variants. So it's actually been cool to be able to kind of see us continually kind of iterate and redesign and kind of do different things here. But let me go ahead and go here to my images and Computex Edition 20 and a GPU. Okay, yep. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So here we go. And I think our ID team, again, did an amazing job with the overall ID design on these guys. So, of course, you still have kind of that really classic ROG Astral design, which I think now, even though it's not like it's been around for years, I think it's already become kind of a standard where it's, I think, so crazy to me that every time we do an updated ID design, there's always so much controversy. There's some people that say, I don't like it, I like the prior generation. And then very shortly after, you can really kind of continue to see that it gets broadly accepted amongst the community. And I think our ID team really across the years has done an amazing job to continue to offer things that are bold, distinct, and stylized, and uniquely ASUS. You don't ever confuse an ASUS-based card for a competitors-based design. And I think we've continually just kept upgrading the overall experience. Like, unquestionably, the Astral are the best cards that we've ever produced from a fit, finish, and quality design perspective. There's just things there that some people don't even keep in mind when it comes to kind of a premium-based card. And that's not to negate what we've done in prior generations or even other cards. Like the Tough Gaming card is a fantastic and really well-built card. Even compared to a lot of competitors, there's totally a lot of premium elements. But even things like the PCB design spacing, which a lot of people just won't even account. The entire PCB layout is entirely custom on the ROG Astral, where we even have specialized no-go clearance zones, so that the bottom area, which would normally be more sensitive to kind of microfractures or cracks, it doesn't actually have even any surface mount componentry that we put around that area, where in many other competitors, they just kind of use the same exact PCB and they kind of offset kind of capacitors or different types of components. As far as like this one's, it's a more premium card, so we'll just put more capacitors on it, and therefore that makes it more premium. But when we designed the Astral, we literally went about every single aspect of the card and we redesigned it. So there's no similarities between this and, let's say, the Tough Gaming based variant or the ProArt based variant, right? They're all unique custom PCBs that we designed and developed specifically for the intent of what we were trying to do there. So the biggest, of course, item outside of the black and gold aesthetic, I think, is going to be, of course, that transparent backplate, which absolutely looks just stunning. I think that just looks so cool. And it's one of the things that I'd been really pushing for years that I wanted to see on a card, is a transparent backplate design to kind of see a little bit more in terms of what you have kind of going on there. So I think that's a really, really cool design element. And then, of course, we kind of maintained kind of a similar vibe that we did there with the ROG Matrix, which, of course, was an anniversary kind of edition graphics card for the ROG 20th anniversary. But this being the edition 20, of course, we want to keep that black and gold design. And then you have, of course, that removable, of course, wraparound kind of display, which absolutely looks stunning. And then, of course, you can synchronize those two displays. So if you do have this card with, of course, the ROG Crosshair Edition 20 in that RYUJIN Edition 20 base cooler, they actually have a synchronized display experience, which is going to be pretty cool. And then, of course, there'll be custom, of course, kind of animations and things like that we have exclusive to the 20th anniversary edition based products, including even a custom kind of Edition 20 theme that will be exclusive to Armory Crate. So overall, pretty sweet in that regard. So yeah, that is going to be the ROG Astral Edition 20. And I think, you know, this segues here into, of course, another complementary product, which would be, of course, the Thor Edition 20. This is going to be the 3000 watt base variant. So ultra high performance. And the reality is, for the vast majority of users, there's no need for that. The reality is, for probably most users, you're probably going to be averaging somewhere about 650 to maybe 800 watts. And that would be in a very high-end configuration under full load, probably performance tuned and overclocked. Because even in reality, with a higher end system under kind of nominal gaming load, you're probably only averaging about 500 to about 600 watts. So an 850 watt to 1000 watt is already going to be actually technically more power than you need. So a 3000 watt solution just kind of goes into an overall kind of territory to just say, yep, I'm just absolutely putting the highest end Now this unit brings in some pretty cool technologies. Our most advanced new generation power supplies and some of our other products that we'll be talking about are incorporating GaN. So we've been using GaN in a wide number of different products, everything from GaN-based solutions in things like our highest performing laptops to be able to make them more efficient and more compact, to even GaN in our latest generation monitors, which helps to improve on efficiency, reduction of actually thermal distribution across the back panel of the monitor, that these also actually utilize GaN MOSFETs, again, improving performance and efficiency. One of the cool additions, this one compared to even the standard ROG models, is that the magnetic actually OLED plate has actually been revised, and now we actually have an extender mechanism which is also included in the unit. So if you actually have kind of a design setup or a build where you want to be able to kind of reposition that display to have it be external or maybe somewhere else within the chassis, you can actually use the included extender cable, which will actually work on either side, and you can go ahead and adjust the placement of where you would want to actually put the wattage display. So I think that's a pretty cool little update that we have there. Also keep in mind that this unit will also come included with the ROG equalizer cable, which is a recently launched product that we have, but it will be included with this model as well. So you'll get kind of that combination all together there. So that's going to be the ROG Thor 3000 watt titanium edition, right? Not platinum, titanium, right? So of course we had to go to kind of a whole nother level. Now, I think the next item that we're going to touch on here, I want to drop the links in there quickly though for these two products. So give me 1 second. I'm going to drop these in there. I'm going to probably talk about the product that I liked the most in our Edition 20 lineup. I really love the Crosshair 2006, but because it's not actually an Edition 20 based product, I can't kind of include it within this mix. But my favorite product, I think, is actually this chassis, because this chassis we've been designing and developing it actually for quite some time. So I'm a really, really big fan of the chassis that we're going to have within the Edition 20 lineup. So let's go. So we got the Crosshair, we got the Edition 20, and I put that in there. So yeah, so let's get ready to bring up this chassis right here. Let me quickly see if there's any questions that kind of popped up there. If not, we'll keep moving that along. Hey, Anthony, happy to have you joining us on the stream, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for joining us this Friday. Hopefully your week is winding out on a positive and productive note, right? Black and gold is back. I know you love that gold. Yeah, I mean, I just, I think that black and gold combination, especially if you guys know me, I love the ProArt based design, which black and gold and ProArt has kind of been its ubiquitous kind of hallmark, but I think it absolutely looks fantastic, and it still looks different, especially that transparency element and just a little bit of the red accents really help to have this feel a little bit different than what we of course have within the ProArt ecosystem. All right. Sorry, is there any new and advanced for the Hive? I'm not sure what you mean by this question. So I'm assuming what you mean by the Hive is, of course, is the external breakout box that we have for products like the X870-I, which come with the actual Hive. So right now we don't have any updates on the Hive. It is something that we're continuing to reevaluate. We've now had the Hive for a couple of generations, and so I think every generation we actually always go back into the internal team and we kind of collect feedback from the community to kind of see what do we think is working, what isn't working. That was quite a big departure in terms of the design, where we kind of changed certain things. There was some that was based off of chipset limitation and design restrictions that we had, and also wanting to offer users, I think, something that was different in terms of like a small form factor build experience, where we said, hey, we can give you this nice outboard premium audio experience. You can have, your Q flash implementation, a USB hub, you have more granular control. You can be able to do things like the USB BOS flashback or one-touch options. So I think there's some really cool kind of elements to that, but always it takes a little bit of time to kind of have the community kind of use something, see how they work with it, what do they like, what do they don't like, and whether or not that comes at the expense of something else. And this is kind of, even if we go back to other products, like me, I was always sad when we sunset the ROG Connect feature that we had for years on motherboards, where there used to be a specialized port on the motherboard that had a USB port, and we had a custom controller that was built on the motherboard. There was a cable that went to there, and you could connect it to a laptop, and you could have a full hardware level, low level readout of the motherboard. So if you wanted to have your debug codes, if you wanted to see your voltages, if you wanted to clear your CMOS, if you wanted to restart your system, if you wanted to do live record logging, there's so many cool things with ROG Connect. But what we saw was actually, to be frank, the enthusiast community, they weren't using it, right? And so it's like, well, are we spending design and feature set on maintaining a feature that, while we think it has a huge amount of value, we just weren't seeing enough user commentary on it, right? And that's always a tricky balance, because sometimes It might be that the community even loves it, and sometimes it's a balancing act between even getting media to acknowledge a feature and kind of want to dive into and talk about it. I'll tell you, being somebody that has had to work with media when we review our products, that's always a challenging act, right? Is there's sometimes so many different things we go in there, and they want to only maybe focus on certain things, and we might think that there's other things that we think are really compelling and really distinct, and they might want to boil things down to just maybe base specs, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I can totally get, like, you just want to talk about the number of M.2 slots, and that's fine, especially if we're maybe doing something cool like a DIM.2 add-in card design, or we're doing different types of PCI layout that might give an advantage over a different type of thing. But I've always kind of said that, hey, I think it's always best to kind of focus on features and functions, the designs that we've spent a lot of design work on that I really think help to provide a better experience to the user, right? But sometimes when these features don't get covered enough, sometimes the users themselves aren't even aware of these things. It's the reason why we try to do the streams, we try to do Q&As, we do, discussions within the community to have people be aware, hey, these are the really cool stuff. Do you like these things? Do you want to see them evolve, right? So I appreciate that feedback. If you have something more specific on the Hive, let me know. But let's keep moving things along here with our next Edition 20 product. So again, we've talked about the ROG Crosshair Edition 20 with the RYUJIN 360 Edition 20, the ROG Astral Edition 20, the ROG Thor Edition 20, and now, for me, my favorite item in the Edition 20 lineup is going to be the GR20 chassis. So this has actually been something that, gosh, I'm trying to think, how long has this chassis been in design and development? I think maybe more than, maybe 2 years, maybe more than 2 years. So it ended up kind of, I think, aligning to where we ended up using it for an Edition 20. And I don't know, I can't tell you for certainty, so don't hold me to this. We'll provide an update if this ends up being the case. Yes, pun intended. That maybe we might release this as a non-Edition 20 product, okay? But as of right now, there's only the plan for the Edition 20. But I can tell you originally, kind of when we were designing and developing in this, there was some elements here that were not originally planned to have it be in the Edition 20, but it ended up aligning kind of well, so we've kind of put it in there. But it's really, really cool. So of course it's a very premium based product because of course it's that predominant aluminum based construction. Still really nice IO based connectivity. So you got your 2 Type A, you got your 2 Type C, you've got your 3.5 millimeter, your power button. Then you got that ROG decal. I really love kind of the accenting elements here between the gold and just a little bit of the red. And I love that you can use this in 3 different ways. If you guys remember my previous setup, I actually had kind of an open frame tower system that I had, which I really, really loved. I loved that. I even had a personal Danger Dale build that I ran for a really long time with that regard. So I'm always a really big fan of open frame types of design systems. Great builders in the community, like Liquid House, Snef, they're big fans of these type of systems as well. So I'm a really big fan of it because it just allows you to kind of showcase all your hardware. And this absolutely looks stunning when you put the motherboard on there, you put the GPU, you put it all in there. But it does support different configurations. So you can actually go for the traditional kind of vertical base, but then you can kind of have almost like a test bed kind of layout where you can lay it flat, kind of in that configuration as well. And then there's also kind of like a tilt angled base configuration that looks also pretty slick. You do have the ability that you can actually mount the GPU both horizontally or vertically, so it will allow for either type of display configuration. So based on your preference, you guys know I'm generally team horizontal, not team vertical when it comes to GPU mounting, although I could definitely see how that vertical mount could look absolutely fantastic. And again, you'll have the flexibility to be able to do both the vertical mount or the horizontal bus mount. But I think this to me, even if I had other kind of based on hardware, just having kind of that more commemorative item and that I could keep swapping out hardware, I really love this. I love the distinct just look and feel to it. I love that even if I kind of want to have a way to just show off cool motherboards, whether I'm transitioning to boards and just kind of have that stationary, may not even have any hardware open running into it, that's where I kind of just love it. So it's a little bit of an extra way to kind of just show off a motherboard, because of course you could put that in a shadow box or something else like that. But yes, here you can see that kind of tilted configuration. So again, you got the traditional kind of vertical, the tilted, and then the horizontal base kind of lay flat configuration. So overall, I think this is, for me, my personal favorite of the entirety of the 20th anniversary series products that we have right there. What do you guys think? Are you guys excited about this one? Do you guys like this one? Do you guys like open frame systems, or do you not like open frame systems? Or do you think that we should have done a different chassis? Should we have done like Edition 20 to like the Hyperion, or maybe we should have done the Chronox, right? The Chronox is coming out. The Chronox made a 20th anniversary version of the Chronox, right? What's your guys' kind of feedbacks or thoughts on that side? But I think it's pretty cool that the chassis itself is entirely unique and that it is by itself, right? So let me go ahead and see right here. Fully agree with JJ that the case, the chassis gives off cool vibes. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's got a really cool kind of distinct look. Even if you didn't have anything with it, I think it kind of looks cool and interesting. But probably most of us as enthusiasts, we probably have an older motherboard that we have. For me, I kept many of the motherboards that I've had through different builds, and it's been cool to, again, I could kind of just put that off there, kind of show it off if I want to. Or also, like I said, when I'm doing my test beds or my setups, I love that I could kind of have all my hardware configuration there. So I think from a practical standpoint, I really like it, but also just from a showcase and also having something commemorative, I'm a really big fan of it. I just love the ID design of it. I think it's pretty cool, right? So it says, do this with a chambered isolated CPU and GPU with the same look. I get where you're coming from that, but I don't agree with that. Yeah, that's very similar to what, I think our friends over at Vantex kind of showed off with their new chassis. I think that's a pretty cool design, but to be honest, I think our cards and our products look so great, you take away from the ID design, right? It's actually one of the main reasons why sometimes I tell people when they're gonna kind of water block, let's say like an ROG card, I go like, why are you water blocking it? Sometimes there can be some design benefits that are cool on the ROG cards, right? That of course you might not get on something like a Prime Series graphics card or even a Tough Gaming Series graphics card. Even the Tough Gaming cards have really nice ID designs where I kind of go like, you're losing part of the value of the design and the feature set of that product, right? So from my perspective, I'm not personally the fan of it. I think that the ID design of having that kind of compartmentalized look is really cool. So in a vacuum, when I just say, hey, does it look cool and distinct? I think it is. But I think it depends on what you're covering, right? If you were covering something that didn't really have a cool ID design, there's no loss to it, right? In some ways, it's almost advantageous to your product have it be really that it's not really that nicely designed. But if that is a distinct, bold ID design, having like a chamber isolated look like that, you're purposely kind of taking away from all of the ID work that went into that product, right? So yeah. Let me go ahead and see right here. Any other questions right there? So Pasco says, JJ, please make the chassis available sold separately. So I believe right now the plan is to have the chassis be sold separately as a standalone based item. I can tell you right now the only bundled based option right now is initially the Crosshair Extreme Edition 20 with the Ryu Edition 20, right? So, excuse me, the RYUJIN Edition 20. So that is planned. For the GR20, at least tentatively right now, as far as I'm aware, it is going to be planned as an off standalone based option. So for me, I want to definitely pick one up. I'd love to be able to have one of those as a standalone based product, right? Also got somebody else that says that they really like the product right there. Oh, hey, mods by Ben, who was also at Computex, man. On a flight home and saw these products. It's more impressive, stunning work. Fantastic. Thank you for those kind words, Ben. Really appreciate that. As somebody also who's a big fan, I think, of open frame systems right there, right? The external OC panel was awesome, but real quick, could you make a dock with a third-party SoC to add lands or bandwidth or something? That's interesting. All of these things are definitely always... Hey, shout out from Trinidad and Tobago, man. Fantastic, man. We got friends joining us internationally, man. Very, very cool, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, when you're talking about like having something external, all of those things are possible. To be honest, I think we've shown the history of doing crazy things with the OC panel, right? With the ROG Connect, right? There's been so many like little specialized adapters and controllers. The question again always comes down to what is the practicality of, I think, the R&D effort to execute and whether or not we see it as a tangible value that the community is going to go like we see the value and the benefit within it. Like one that I've continued to fight for and argue, and even with media, I won't say the media that I've had sometimes discussions with regarding it, but I had like a media where we had a discussion where they were challenging the concept on saying, hey, I don't think it's there's any point to have a higher end base motherboard, premium motherboards. I think it's a quote unquote waste. And I really challenged that convention because I said, I understand where you're coming from. And I think that would be a fairer argument if we didn't offer kind of like a good, better, best, right? If we were only saying you could only buy a really expensive motherboard and we weren't giving you lower priced options, that might be a more fair thing to kind of argue against. But for us, a lot of the design work that we put into the really premium based products, they lay a foundation to benefit not only the other users, even in the more entry-based segmentation of the market, but actually, to be frank, they broadly serve the benefit in the industry. If you really look at something like even like motherboards, probably 85%, I might even be more than that, but at least I'd say 80% of probably the premium features that you probably see on a motherboard were designed, developed by the ROG team on our products, and then they were copied by competitors. They were implemented on their products. And so even if you bought a competitor's motherboard at a lower price point 3 years later, if you love USB BIOS flashback, you have nobody to thank, except for the ROG team that designed and developed that feature, and we had it exclusively for years. There was competitors that just didn't have it, and now every motherboard that you're buying has USB BIOS flashback, and that came from the work and the time and effort that we did. The push button clear CMOS, that was designed by an ROG engineer. Differential design sense, that's also done by that. The isolated audio design that you now see on everybody else's motherboard, that was designed by ROG. So I challenge and go, so many of these great things that even have benefited the entire industry were designed and developed on our premium segmentation, and then we've rolled it out to more and more products. But even this user, I talked to him about, let's talk about water cooling. I'm a low water cooling enthusiast. This Apex board, take for instance, I love the fact that it's got this DIMM.2 add-in card, because if I hardline loop my whole system and I want to add an M.2 SSD to that, that literally means I have to drain my whole loop. I gotta drain my whole loop, and then I'm gonna have to remove my graphics card, right? To then be able to access the M.2 SSD slots on the motherboard, put that in there, put the graphics card back in there, replumb the loop, and then redo all of that. It's literally hours worth of work to do all of that just to add an M.2 SSD. Where on this more premium motherboard, yes, it requires more design work. We had to implement all of these specialized design topology, and then we had to design this. But this, it was in the box. I can literally take this out of the box, put the M.2 SSD in there, slot it into a slot next to the DRAM. In less than 5 minutes, I would have installed my M.2 SSD. That, to me, as an enthusiast builder, unquestionably has value. I respect my time and my effort. So yeah, I'm going to pay a little bit more, but I'm going to also get way more features, way more functions, all this other cool stuff. But that alone, that might be one of the reasons why I might value that. So I think for us, when we design these products, the goal is always we want to try to pay attention to the user. I think it is important to say that one product isn't right for every single user, and that's why we try to make a whole bunch of different models, different series. Is, you might be somebody that's just looking for that sweet spot, really great price to performance to feature set. Hey, the Prime series or Tough Gaming series might be a better option. Maybe you want to hit that really nice sweet spot balance in terms of more premium, but without going into a really, really more expensive product. So we got ROG Strix, right? Maybe you're more on that creation side, you've got ProArt, or maybe you want to go to the super premium ROG. You've got those options, right? Or even, again, things like WS, right? Is like, not every product needs to be for every single user. So that's what we try to pay attention to, is whether we're designing the product to align with the wants and needs from that user in that community. But overall, I think this is a great addition right here, the GR20 that we have right there. So let's go into the monitor. We've got a really great addition update here. So this is pretty much the flagship series based display that we have right now within our 1440p segmentation. So this is of course the ROG Swift, the PG27AQWP -W, which of course when we first introduced it was our first Swift monitor, which was available in white. So this effectively is going to be that same monitor, but we shifted over into the black and the gold. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. This is still pretty much the cream of the crop. This is of course that utilizing that tandem base panel technology, so you get that better color saturation performance, outstanding luminance performance from this model as well. Still technically peak brightness is going to be better on a white subpixel based monitor, right? Because you have that white subpixel. But if you care about the relative overall efficiency, lifespan, color saturation, great still luminous performance, then that tandem is going to be a superior option. And then that's his blistering speed, right? So of course that 1440p at that 540 hertz, and then you have that secondary toggle mode, which is really just there for that very, very niche segmentation of ultra competitive players, where you can run it at HD mode, and then you can run that at 720 hertz, right? So it's got that beautiful, of course, low profile angular kind of stand that we have always on kind of the ROG Swift displays. It's got that translucent based rear backing panel that we introduced on the -W model, which I think absolutely looked beautiful. But for those of you that didn't want it in the white, now we have it in the black, and I love this one again with that gold. I think it pops, right? And those gold plated elements I think absolutely look stunning on there. So yeah, that is going to be the PG27AQWP-G. We also will have a variant of this one that will be coming out that actually is not in the Edition 20 lineup. So there will actually be a variant called the PG27AQWP, I believe -R, which will be for the ARM-based variant. So we did this previously with a 240 hertz base model, where we actually had an ROG OLED monitor that came bundled with an actual ROG ARM, so it was actually included. And for those of you guys who watch the promos that we do on the weekly streams, it's one of the best promos. We recently, I think, dropped that one from like $7.99, it was like $5.99. It was kind of crazy. It was like the price of the monitor, and the ARM is like getting the monitor ARM for free with that monitor. It was absolutely crazy. But Yeah, we will have a variant of this model that also is going to be coming with the monitor arm. And we're going to get into a little bit, but we're also updating. We're going to have another monitor arm that will be a little bit less expensive than our current ROG monitor arm, because we're coming out with, guess what, a tough gaming monitor arm. So there will actually be two that we're going to have. We're going to have an ROG monitor arm, and then we'll have a tough gaming based monitor arm as well. So yeah, that's going to be there. Now, keep in mind, don't worry, I got more monitors that I'm going to talk about. So anybody asking me about the monitors, don't worry. I'm finishing the Edition 20 base products first. So let me get through these guys first on the Edition 20 side. I don't remember if I dropped the chassis in the chat. So let me go ahead and drop the chassis in the chat. And we'll drop that in there. And then we'll also drop the monitor in there. And for the Edition 20, the price on that one is actually the same price. So yeah, it should be pretty much, I think it's the same price. So on that one, I think that one's already available. Actually, no, sorry. That's a $100 price increase. Sorry. Correct. $10.99 is the price for the Dash W, which is the white variant, and $11.99 is the price for the Edition 20. Of course, because there's things like gold plating, there's some other elements that are actually more expensive on the Edition 20 base model. So yeah, drop that in there. Let me go ahead and quickly see any questions that came up there. Will that tough also get the monitor light bar? Oh, so if you're referring to it, like, are we going to release a tough gaming version of the light bar that we had, like we had the ROG light bar? I haven't seen anything within the roadmap development that we have a secondary light bar in place. I think if we probably did do one, we might actually do one under the ProArt ecosystem before we did one for tough gaming. But you know, as of right now, I can tell you I haven't seen anything that we've had any updates on that side. Would be nice if that hole on the top of the stand would be moved to the screen itself. I don't think so, to be honest, because the thinness of the OLED panels is just too thin, right? And you really want to affect the structural integrity. Maybe, I don't know if we could try to have like almost like an offset type of rear panel design where maybe like there was something that extended out at the top and you kind of moved it in there. I find that for most people, the best way to do it is you just use a small like little extension arm. So it's very common because you can get these in the photography, videography field, where you can get like a 2 or 3 inch little extension bar. You throw that on there, and then on top of that, then you go ahead and just put on your camera, your light, or your microphone. Or in one setup that I've had, I actually put on an extension bar with then a secondary cold plate, and then on the cold plate I could put actually the camera and the light at the same exact time, right? And then you could even put your microphone on the hot shoe for your actual camera if you wanted to be able to do that. But I love the threaded mount that we do on our monitors. I think right now we're the only vendor that does a threaded mount on the base. So I do think that unquestionably adds a value set. For those of you who don't know, you don't know, but now you know that that's actually something that we do on our ROG based monitors, right? Hey Cletus, so yeah, I mean, that definitely is going to be an expensive price for the Edition 20 base, but the reality is we have a super broad segment of GPUs, even within the 5090, right? We have everything from, you know, a tough gaming 5090, we've got a ProArt 5090, we've got multiple versions of the ROG Astral 5090. The 5090 is a super elite base card, but if you're just looking for kind of the most price aggressive, then that's the reason why we would offer things like the Prime series or the Tough Gaming series, right? So anywhere you look in the product stack, this is kind of like what I was talking about before, is that just like a motherboard, right? Like we literally have motherboards that are going to be over $1,000, and then we have motherboards that are going to be, you know, $200, right? You buy based on the feature or function design you want. I would argue that I've been with ASUS now for almost 20 years. We've never had as much choice and flexibility in the ecosystem that we're providing to consumers across all budgets. Now, there's a lot of things happening within the industry right now that, of course, affect pricing. But if I still look at the totality of the feature set and functionality of what you get at multiple price points, like the fact that we've got amazing gaming monitors, right? Like in our tough gaming lineup, where I think we had a price promo recently on a tough gaming 1440p 300 hertz display that was $200 on promotion. That's an outstanding level of performance and value, while at the same time I've got flagship OLED displays, right, which are going to be $1,200 or even more depending on the size of the refresh rate or resolution. So I think that we really spend a huge amount of time to try to give as much choice as possible, and that includes choice within pricing. But the reality is that the most premium features and functions and spec for those that do want that, it will carry a higher price band, and that's just the reality of those type of product designs, right? But we try to offer, I think, a huge amount of balance, and more importantly, Like I talked about, I think with the example with the ROG based products is we love also being able to take more premium functions and features and bring those down into more products over time, where we can use the people that are willing to spend more and we allow them to get those best class features, but then actually even users in the entry segmentation a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, they start to actually get these really cool features that you might have only seen on the most premium types of products you get rolled in, right? Which I think actually is the best way to type of do a segmentation design, where that allows you to benefit the totality of users over time, right? So let's go ahead, and that's the Swift monitor. I think I dropped that one already in the chat, guys. Can you guys double check? Let me know if I did drop that one in the chat. No price yet on that one, so I don't have a price on the chassis yet. Okay, so let's go into our next edition series product. Yeah, so Cletus, I think it depends, right? I mean, for one, it sounds like you might not necessarily even be the target type of person that would buy that type of 5090 base graphics card. But when you look at kind of what we do, I think within a premium design, there's always a lot of stuff that we'll do. So I talked even a little bit about it earlier when I was actually talking an example about the graphics card. So take for instance, like right now, I believe we're the only manufacturer that has a full actually custom CNC cut, like actually die cast shroud. So like many times on a graphics card, I don't have one here. I mean, this Strix card is even still a great example because this is from the prior generation, but most of the manufacturers, they're going to use like a multi-layered kind of plastic composite based shell, right? The ROG Astro literally has actually a custom metal actually cut, and then it has actually multiple lasers of laser etching, which in itself actually add cost and complexity, right? There's actually a custom milled, what's called milled vapor chamber design, which is the only card in the industry that uses a custom milled vapor chamber design. So all of these things add cost. It's very interesting that sometimes people think that just because you add one kind of feature that's segmented, that it doesn't cost you, but you also have to consider things like R&D production. A good example like is when we go to chassis design, a lot of people don't realize that in chassis production, like just designing and developing and putting out a new chassis, you can conservatively spend $250,000 to $500,000 to do what's called the tooling for a chassis. And then you might not realize that you sometimes have to redo new elements of tooling if you just want to have it in multiple colors, because sometimes the tooling imprint finishes that you have between white and black, they won't show up in black, but they'll show up in white. So then it costs even more money to respec out to have it in actually in a different color. So that actually means that the cost scale isn't even the same between the same products, but just in a different color. Now imagine that you do that to where you go to another type of product where you can't even cross leverage what you might have done in your previous R&D work, and you have to do something entirely new, right? Where you got new custom PCB, you have new actually design materials that you're actually going to be using, you have other features that we're going to be doing right in there. Again, like the Astro was a great example where we had to put in a new custom IC sensor that allowed us to have per pin monitoring so that we could actually detect the actual the amperage per each one of these pins, so people could have a full real-time sense. And there was nothing like that on the market. We literally even saw that it took somebody like Thermal Grizzly to come out with something like the Wire Guard, which was an aftermarket product to allow you to have a similar functionality that we literally built into the graphics card, right? So there's a lot of things that go into design and development, and this doesn't mean that universally it's going to be the case for all companies. There's some companies that, yes, it is a reality. Sometimes they charge you more, and it's literally just the same product, and they change like two things. I think for us, we spend a lot of time and effort to really try to create strong differentiation on segmentation based on feature, function, and spec, as well as ID design, and that's how we tier out a product, right? But again, that's the reason why we offer multiple products for the user, right? So again, if you don't need everything that the ROG model has, then you can go with the Tough Gaming model, or you can go with the Prime model, or you can go with the different model that we might have that will be very close in terms of kind of the feature set. And when we're talking about GPUs, because generally the performance for the GPU is going to be very close. There's a percentage difference, but it's very close. If that's what's most important to you is just the min-max proposition, you don't care about anything else, then just buy like the Prime version, right, or the Dual version. You're still going to get actually a really built card. A great example, some people don't kind of keep this in mind, we were the first manufacturer that unilaterally went to what's called SMT production for graphics cards. So that means that we are actually using more advanced machine finishing, in production in our graphics card production, and that was for every card that we had in our lineup. Doesn't matter, down from like $100 graphics card to our graphics cards that were over $1,000, right? Every single card used SMP production. We were the first manufacturer to do that, so we said, hey, build quality is going to be better on us than it is going to be anybody else because we've implemented this. And so even at the most entry price point, we were giving you a better production design process, right? So even again, if you're going to buy like the primer or the dual, it's not like you're getting a reduced quality part. It might not have as advanced quality implementations as you might have, but there's still a lot of things that will still be, I think, to a high standard to ensure reliability, durability, and still great performance. So let's go ahead and continue forward here. We've got the router. So this is going to be, of course, an update to our current flagship-based router. So this is going to be the GTB98 Pro Edition 20. It's pretty much the same as, of course, what we would expect within our current base router. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just want to go ahead and show it to you guys here. This is going to be a great option. Of course, if you're looking for a flagship series product, this is going to, of course, be it. So this is a quad band based solution. So that means you have your 2.4, your 5 gigahertz, and then you have two 6 gigahertz bands. It has, of course, also dual 10G networking built into it. Then it also has a quad 2.5 gigabit. It also has USB connectivity that you can even have a USB WAN backup. So that means if like your primary ISP goes down, you just connect your smartphone, your Android or your iPhone to the USB port, and bam, you have an immediate 4 or 5G cellular backup that you can go ahead and kick on into play. Tons of other really, really great features and functions and spec in here that are built into this unit. This is an absolute monster. You know, if you match this with any 6 gigahertz enabled product, when you talk about the latency and the speed, you can legitimately see 2 to over 3 times the speed of a gigabit Ethernet cable wirelessly with a matching Wi-Fi 7 product. So if you match this with like a Wi-Fi 7 laptop, a Wi-Fi 7 mini PC, a Wi-Fi 7 desktop-based motherboard system, smartphone, you could be seeing 2.5, 3 gigabits of wireless throughput, which is absolutely crazy. And that's not even to speak of all the other kind of cool functions or features that we have built in. Probably one of my favorite things that we do is we have, well, I'd say 3 things. 3 things I love is our smart home SSD master system. That means that we have actually a built-in kind of SSD deployment system where you can easily assign different bands to different types of experiences. So we have like a dedicated IOD band. So if you want to be able to connect everything from your refrigerator to your washer to your smart cameras to monitors, you can just connect those to immediately the 2.4 gigahertz band through the IoT master setup, and bam, you're good to go. Maybe you want a dedicated band for just your VPN so that you can immediately connect to that, and then any device has that anonymity and the benefits of the VPN. You could set up a VPN band. You want a parental control band, you can do that. You want a dedicated gaming band, you can do that. You can even set up custom rules for the gaming bands, where if you have things like special port forwarding options, if you want to enable or disable MLO, you can do all kinds of really cool things. A lot of really great options that we will have, very comprehensive. If you guys want to know more, watch some of the other streams that we've had that dive more into kind of some of the Wi-Fi 7 feature set. I think it absolutely looks stunning. I think the standard model looks great, but again, this one with that black and gold, I think absolutely just looks stunning. So great option here. And I'll drop in there again, if somebody's just looking for a great high performance router but doesn't want to go into this price territory, take a look at the ROG Strix BE12000 or the BE18000. The 18000 is exclusive to Best Buy. It's a little bit more, but the BE12000 goes on promo pretty consistently. But that model, for the price point, plus it has the AFC technology, which is absolutely a game changer for 6 gigahertz performance if it can be enabled in your region, is probably for me the best bang for the buck option. If you want to even save a little bit more money, the RTBE 96 is a really good option, or the 92 I think are great options that you could also consider. 92 I think is usually sometimes promoing around like 250, sometimes even less than 250, and those are both full tri-band based units. The Tough Gaming BE 9400 is also another great option right there. All right, so let me drop that one in the chat there. And that one is available for pre-order right now, guys, the router. So let me drop that one in there. MLO, so yes, MLO gets a little bit complicated. So MLO is still a little bit kind of variable within the marketplace. Technically, the chipset radio functionality, we have MLO. The main kind of benefit of the way that the MLO is working, it would be utilizing when you want to have a connection experience with another product. So if you were to use like our AI mesh configuration, so base high performance routers are generally going to cover you about 2,400 to sometimes up to about 3,000 square feet. Depends a little bit on the environment and on the specific model. This model's on the higher end side. It's pretty much our flagship router, so you're generally within that like 2600 to I'd say 2850 plus square feet, right, in terms of overall coverage. But if you needed even more coverage, that's where we have some optimization technology that we have with our ASUS Smart Haul and Backhaul technology, where we can actually leverage MLO between the actual two endpoints to be able to maximize performance. But in terms of kind of where we're at within the kind of current experience for Wi-Fi 7 base specification technology, the maximum that's been made available is right now available within that unit. I'd say the only item or the feature that unit is quote unquote missing and it's not specific to Wi-Fi 7, so I don't count it within this, is going to be the AFC technology. Right now, AFC is exclusive to the ROG Rapture B19000AI, so that's our absolute highest end unit. The AI is actually positioned above the BA98 Pro, or the new ROG Strix, the B12000 or the 18000. All three of those models all have AFC technology. And if you're not aware, AFC is just I don't want to spend too much time because again we got so much to talk about, but AFC is a really cool technology that essentially the router can kind of scan your area, and if there's essentially this ability for the router to increase its power output to maximize having even better performance for the 6 gigahertz band, assuming there's no competing signals, which is dependent on the environment that you have and whether it's been deregulated in your space, the router can increase the amplitude output. But this has a really big advantage, and in our testing you can literally have double the 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi performance with having AFC enabled versus AFC disabled. And it actually is most beneficial not within like a kind of close line of sight, so within like the first 20 to 10 feet. It actually tends to have even a bigger impact at 25, 35, 40, 50, 60 feet away from the router, where you can see this, 25%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 100%, so literally doubling of the wireless throughput. It's pretty crazy that you can literally be like, oh, I was at 350, 400 megabits, and now I could be at 700, 800 megabits of wireless throughput with having the AFC technology enabled. Again, that's the reason why I said that for a lot of people, I think for the money, the ROG Strix, the BA12000 is the model to get, especially because it has that AFC technology support. Okay. As of right now, no. That it would not be present on there. Wi-Fi 8 is not just a whole bunch of software updates. There's a lot of stuff that we actually have. I'll talk a little bit about the model that we have, which we just announced, because we actually have two Wi-Fi 8 specific announcements that came out of Computex, but it's not. There's actually an entirely brand new chipset, and there's redistribution in terms of the chipset load balancing. There's actually some really cool stuff that is also being done in terms of software that we have within the ASUS WRT firmware. I think we have the best in-class industry support for our routers in terms of ASUS WRT firmware that exists. So whenever possible, we will continue to maximize performance and feature set, but there's some things that are fundamentally based off of the attenuation balancing, the actual chipset balancing, and the firmware management within that chipset that is required to get those benefits. I would say the biggest benefit, quote unquote, really for Wi-Fi 8 right now is not a peak performance. We're already at such high levels of performance that you can get within Wi-Fi 7, where again, you're talking about 1.5, 2.5, 3 plus megabits of real world throughput. We're not talking about just backhaul endpoint connections, because if you're talking about backhaul endpoint connections, you could easily be talking about much bigger benefits than that in terms of speeds. You could be looking at 4, 5, 6 gigabits of actually sustained throughput between two endpoints. But it's actually going to be, I would say, within a stability of actually IoT or legacy-based devices, so 2.4 gigahertz, which seems odd, but the reality is that 2.4 is the most prevalent, and they actually can sometimes be the most challenging because of the way that they actually do power attenuation. They can actually be more inconsistent. They can drop in and out. So there will be a significant improvement in terms of maintaining, I think, 2.4 gigahertz stability signals, especially for, like I said, IoT-based devices. And then also, I would say, medium range throughput performance. So not when we're talking about very close to the router, but really kind of within the real world kind of TAM of that middle space, as you will probably see, I think, anywhere from about 50 to 100% performance improvements in terms of kind of that medium spacing. So I would say in this regard, it's more evolutionary than it is necessarily revolutionary, but there's still a lot to come, and we're also still not in the stage yet where we have Wi-Fi 8 clients, which will help to also further solidify that. So I think it'll be more of a question that if you really don't plan on maybe doing an upgrade for some time, when Wi-Fi 8 finally comes to market, it makes more sense. But considering right now that it's taken Wi-Fi 7 time to fully stabilize, and now we have a full Wi-Fi 6 ecosystem where you can get Wi-Fi 7 all the way down to very aggressive price points with dual band solutions, to tri band, to quad band solutions, and you can pretty much almost hit every price point, right? I mean, we have Wi-Fi 7 that's sub $200, and then you can of course go to flagship series products, which goes over to over $1,000 if you're talking about like multi mesh pack configurations of like something like the B30,000 or something like that. So there's going to be a lot of choice. Well, Wi-Fi 8 will take a long time for it to leave really that high-end positioning. So it's really only going to be for those users that need the highest end-based models, right? Let me go ahead and go from there. So let's go ahead and continue this forward, and we'll go to the next item right here. So going there, we're going to go to the keyboard. Going to go to the favorite keyboard in my lineup. This is my current kind of go-to model. You know, so I was just changing out some switches right now on this one. So this is, of course, my ROG ASUS. I still actually daily drive this guy. It's a fantastic keyboard. I love it. The ASUS Extreme, though, is on a whole nother level. So the ASUS Extreme is our most premium-based keyboard that we produce. It has everything from a carbon fiber positioning plate to actually a special dual mode system where it actually has these internalized detents that allow actually the positioning plate and everything to adjust, so that it actually can go from one kind of mode, which is a little bit more stiff, to another mode which is actually a little bit more kind of like bouncy, and they both feel great. And the reality is you don't even need to change it. You could use both modes from like a gaming and from a general productivity standpoint, but it does make a difference when you talk about kind of like the user experience at how you use a keyboard, right? So generally the stiffness is going to be better for kind of consistent heavy actuation when you're gaming, right? That when you're typing, because you actually might want a little bit less actually kind of like feedback, you want it might be a little bit more bouncy. That's where you can actually use the adjustment mechanism that we build in. And I still think at this stage, I don't think I've seen actually any competitor, even in the custom marketplace, ever actually have a real-time toggle ability to be able to adjust things like that. So I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look here at the ROG ASUS Extreme Edition. The main updates, of course, are going to be the aesthetic styling cues for the ASUS Extreme Edition, Edition 20. So, of course, you have that black and gold based design aesthetic. I really love kind of like that dual keycap design where you have the translucentness, but then you also have the actual legends. I prefer this design because I have had multiple keycaps even that are fully translucent. I'm not the biggest fan of it because sometimes having the entire keycap being fully translucent can make sometimes the legends a little bit harder to see at different times depending on actually the brightness scenario and the backlighting that you will use. So actually I prefer this vibe because it gives you that really kind of cool, almost omni kind of color profile that you will see more spread out throughout the keyboard with different types of lighting configurations, but it makes the legends a bit easier to see. You'll notice here that what I talk about actually there on those F keys, where I would say that it looks really cool and it's distinct, but that's where I'm talking about that actually keeping all of the primary legends, I think actually without the full translucent keycap like we have here, is a little bit more favorable. But since you kind of know what these are, I think it works okay to have those be transparent and add a little bit more of that kind of styling cue. Now the Extreme Edition 20 will come, of course, with this premium kind of weighted silicone wrist rest, which of course also has that really nice kind of black and gold motif to it. You of course have the internal carbon fiber positioning plate, right? You have the OLED color display, the adjustment wheel. This is a full tri-mode based option as well. So you have the 2.4 gigahertz, you have of course the Bluetooth, and you have the USB-C wired connection. It does also support the 8,000 hertz polling rate. Massive battery life that's going to be in this unit as well. There's a lot more stuff packed in here. Again, I could spend 30 minutes talking about this keyboard. There's so many kind of crazy things that we do with the Extreme Edition that really goes into kind of the fit and the finish and the construction, and even kind of little details of micro finishing certain things, the custom PCB that we have in there, are a lot of really kind of premium elements. One last point that I will note, but it's present on so many of our products that, you know, it's not like it's singular to this, but I do like to let people know. If you do pair this, of course, with an ASUS mouse as well, it does have the Omni receiver support, which means that you can use the receiver for both bonding to the keyboard and the mouse at the same time. So you don't have to use independent receivers for each device. You can go ahead and just use one single one for each one. There is a slight penalty that you get in terms of actually a latency performance, but we've worked really hard to have it still be full gaming grade, and it's actually best in class in the industry in that regard. But if you really kind of want that benefit of only having one adapter for both devices, you can do that. If not, of course, you can use the adapters that come with each one respectively, right? And going along with that, of course, we also then would need to go, well, if we got the mouse, then, excuse me, if you got the keyboard, then we now need to go ahead and talk about the mouse, right? So let's go to the mouse. I really love the way that the harp looks. The harp looks absolutely awesome in terms of the overall ID design. This one does actually have a spec update. It's even a little bit more premium in terms of kind of the ROG aimpoint sensor that we have on here. And again, I just love that translucent body that it has on there. It's really slick. I think it's really cool. I love the little red accent right there with the established 2006. Of course, the headquarters-based design implementation right there, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so that is going to be the ROG Harp Edition 20. That's a symmetrical based option. Of course, if you need something on the Ergo side, then of course we have the Keras 2, which has been recently released. Actually, a couple of different versions of the Keras 2. For those of you also that don't, for some whatever reason, want to use the latest version of the AC ecosystem, if you don't want to use Armor Crate, keep in mind all the latest peripherals. They also all do support the GearLink software, which is a driver-free base, software-based free ecosystem. So you can use the actual web driver to be able to go ahead and manage and configure your peripherals. I still prefer Armor Crate. It's more comprehensive, but if you just want something that's super minimal, then you can do that. But again, I actually already consider AC to be minimal because it's a decoupled based software, so I can take out the parts that I don't want if I for some reason have an issue with that. And we also run an active memory suspension system, which means that when the actual program's not even in the foreground, the actual program will pretty much suspend itself. It doesn't actively use CPU cycles or memory resources. And we've actually done competitive benchmarking against other competitors' applications and actually came out in front of them in that regard. But yeah, this is going to be the ROG Harp 2 Extreme Edition, Edition 20, and then the ROG ASUS Edition 20. So 2 updates there on the peripheral side. Let me go ahead and drop those in the chat for you guys. Did I drop the router, guys? I don't know if I dropped the router. Can somebody tell me if I dropped the router? Let's drop that in there. So that's going to be the ASUS, and then we'll do the harp. Okay, and there we go. Drop another one in there. Neymar says, as I love my Extreme, fantastic, man. Thank you so much, right? So Micah goes, I'm still testing the ROG ASUS 96HE. That's a fantastic model. So it was really cool because we didn't used to have the Hall effect updates for the ASUS, right? So the ASUS, it came with the snow switches or the storm switches, which I absolutely love. I still think I probably prefer the snow switches a little bit to the updated switches from the Hall effect, but the newest Hall effects I think are really, really nice too. So it's a tough kind of balance. I think it again really comes down to whether or not you're actually going to use the custom actualization. But I love on the ASUS 96HE that you get kind of that balance of fantastic keyboard, tons of features, the customization element, plus you still get actually that expanded kind of keyboard. So if you need those additional keys, that's a banger of a keyboard. Really, really nice option right there, right? Yeah, passcodes goes as a HE. I think it, yeah, I mean, I could see it both ways, but the reality is when we designed and developed originally the ASUS Extreme, Hall effect was only first just coming to the market. And the other reality was that when you talk about a Venn diagram, for us, you already have, there's actually no input latency difference between a mechanical switch and a Hall effect based switch, right? They're actually the same. So you can have still ultra low latency. So it's truly still a gaming grade based product because you have outstanding low latency, consistent actuation, great feel, all those other elements. But when we're designing the ASUS in the Venn diagram, we didn't only care about gaming. That's the reason why we have like the Ace products, or let's say the other kind of products that we had that were focused. If like that's your only intent, okay, then you can go that route. But we wanted everything within the Venn diagram to hit. And in that regard, we felt that the overall typing experience in combination with also the gaming input experience, it was better to prioritize the switch function on that. So that's the reason why we did that. And eventually, of course, you could also do switch rolling if you really wanted to. It is something that we know that we've seen some people ask for, but for like me, I don't actually even use custom actuation, and I have a Hall effect keyboard, right? So for me, I was fine with that. And I think that's actually the truth on the majority users, is that it really comes down to that if you're not going to custom set your actuation, you don't need a Hall effect switch, right? And I would argue that still the feel and the profiling sound is a little bit better on a traditional switch than it is on Hall effect, although we've done a lot of work to get them, I think, pretty close, right? To where I'd say they're both a very, very good experience. I still think that overall, though, the standard switches have just a little bit of a better sound profile and feel profile. But you're talking you know, very, very subtle kind of differences between the two. Okay. Um, the Merlin firmware mod, yeah, I don't think you need to use the Merlin firmware mod on our router. Somebody's commenting on that, but that's somebody, we've worked with Merlin for a very long time, that's kind of an additional value prop. We have really the most comprehensive feature-rich firmware that's in the industry, and the Merlin mod firmware is mod firmware. It's not custom firmware, so he still uses the base work that we do, which is quite extensive, and then enhances it for kind of the end user community that wants kind of some specialized stuff on top of that. For the vast majority of users, to be frank, I really don't think there's a point in you using the custom-based firmware. I think it's really only for the niche of the niche users. They really kind of need that more specialized feature set that you should kind of consider it. But I think it is a great value point that we offer that to our users, right? Where many other companies have like more locked software ecosystems where they don't have kind of third-party options that are available to them if they want to be able to do that. And it's also been a pleasure to be able to work with Merlin and their team to be able to continue to be supporting them, and then also be able to have them supporting us. So very, very cool on that side. So let me go there. Extreme Edition 20, the harp. Did I drop the harp in there? I think I dropped the harp in the chat, right? Did I drop the harp in the chat? Stop right here, niche of niche. Not sure if I asked earlier, but wondering if there's any update on the white Urox. I don't think Urox. I don't know what you mean by Urox. So the Uroxes are the fans. The Chronox is the chassis. So both the chassis available, at least in the North American region, should be roughly available around the same time frame. Should be the same generally for the fans. The fans are going to be a little bit later than the chassis, so we'll have the Chronox ahead of the fans, right? But we'll actually announce them here on the channel once they actually get ready for channel availability. But we're still a little bit away from both the Chronox as well as actually from the Uroxes launching. I need a Chakram refresh. I agree. I don't have my Chakram right here. Normally, I love the Chakram X. I'm still fine with it. I have big hands. I'm 6'2", and so I don't mind the weight, but I would love to have one that just even has a little bit more advanced battery, maybe shave it just down a little bit of weight, maybe some updated skate design profiling and a couple of other little things. But I agree with you. I would love to see an updated Chakram. Yeah, I think that would be an absolute banger of a mouse. I agree. I think pretty good. Okay. So where are we at? Oh, the keycaps. Let's go with the mystery edition keycaps. I think these are pretty cool. This is kind of a little bit more fun. This will probably be a little bit more for kind of the general, maybe not as extreme guys out there. Maybe if you're just looking to have like a smaller little addition update to how you might kind of celebrate the ROG 20th anniversary, then we're going to have this for you guys. So this will be, of course, the ROG Keycap Mystery Box Edition 20. So these are going to be blind boxes, so you won't know which one it is. So there is going to be the reality within that. But you can see you've got different ones right here, from the ROG decals, right, to the actual chair, to the Rakiri controller, to the Deltas, you know, keyboard and mouse, right? So they'll be packed in right there. They do actually have the chair, which is pretty cool. You can see how their stance design. I really love this one, the Claymore too, which is pretty cool because it actually has the actual Bond portion, which was the secondary actually part to the keyboard, right, with the swappable keyboard. So I actually love that design. It's pretty cool, right? So yeah, so you can see right there. There's right here is the keycap variant featuring a unique ROG emblem in the ultra rare design with a 1 in 48 chance of being picked. That would be pretty sweet, right, to be able to pick up right there. So again, you guys can see all of the different ones that we're going to have here: the ROG 20th anniversary Eye, the Chariot, the Claymore, the Gladius, the Rakiri, the Delta, the 20th anniversary, right? So yeah, these ones will be coming out. Again, if you kind of want to be able to drop something on your keyboard, I think this is going to be a cool little update right there. So I will drop those ones in the chat there. Oh, the Chronox pre-order is up. Yeah, I thought it wasn't going to be up until next week, so that's why I didn't cover it in actually this week's stream. But fantastic, yes, yes. I was gonna, like I said, I was privy that we were going to probably have it around kind of Computex, but there's always some delays from some of our team that ends up going to Computex, so there was a little bit delay on the SKU up. But yes. Don't let the chakram. Yes, don't worry. I'll definitely pass some feedback over to our team on that side. So next up, what do we got here? I think that's on the peripheral side, right? Okay, so let's go to our next one. We've got the chair. So this is just your chair. Of course, this is our flagship series chair. We actually have now quite a number of chairs within our actually lineup ecosystem. So we've got everything from the Chariot. We have the Chariot Core. We have the Atheon, right? There's actually quite a number of different actually chairs that we have up in terms of like look, feel, finish, design. This is still, of course, my favorite within the entirety of the lineup. We do also have a core edition version that actually got released, which is at a much lower base price point. So this just carries all the consistent hallmarks of what we had in this one, but in this new updated ID styling. I do think it absolutely looks fantastic in this black and gold. I love the skeletal back frame design that I think in that accented gold. I think that looks fantastic. And this is where I would agree when somebody said the Edition 20 Hyperion would have been cool. Imagine a Hyperion in the Edition 20 black and gold color scheme with this. Oh man, that would just look absolutely insane. I think those would be very, very cool looking. So yeah, this will be an update. This will be for the Edition 20 chair. So let me go ahead and drop this one in the chat as well. Hey Ezra, happy to have us joining here on the stream, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on today, man. Hopefully your Friday's going good. Okay, so let me go ahead and what else we got? Okay. Okay, I know. Okay, here we go. We're gonna have the NUC 16. So the next update here is going to be our NUC 16, but this is going to be the Edition 20. So we previously had the 20th, we had the GR70, which was 9955 HX3D, which is the Mac configuration with the 5070. So that was an AMD based model, wasn't designated under the NUC series, but it was the GR70. And then we had the ROG NUC, the 2025 edition, right, which came with the prior generation Intel-based 200 series chipset and went up to a 5080. We now have the new NUC 16 series, which we talked about previously in the prior live stream. So if you want to find out a little bit more, watch the prior live stream. That one gets updated to the new HX series update, so it'll be up to an Intel 290HX CPU and up to a 5080, and we'll have it in both white and black. And it also has the new G sensor, which allows it to be positioned vertically or horizontally, like what we did with the prior first generation 7.5 liter ROG NUC. The Edition 20 is going to be unique in that, of course, you have that unique color scheme, but it will also have a 5090. So, and none of the configurations before have we gone over a 5080. 5080 mobile had been the highest performing base part. So this model will be unique in that it will actually come with the higher space baked model. So you have that signature plate, the light embossing, right, the stand, right, that all comes along with it. And then this model will be, like I said, up to will be the 5090 base variant. So if you want the absolute highest end based ROG NUC configuration, it will be this model right here. So I don't know if they already have it full in there, but yeah, again, you can see it's the 290HX. And again, the goal always with the ROG NUCs is to run them at the maximum TDP allowance of what that part is allowed for, so to get the peak performance. That's actually one of the challenges that sometimes you have when you even try to compare this to a laptop, is that sometimes laptops actually have more reduced base power envelope profiles. Although, of course, on ROG, we similarly try to provide the best power envelope distribution balance between the CPU and the GPU configurations, especially if you're looking at more like a SCAR class laptop, as opposed to like a thinner, lighter laptop, where we try to maybe balance out the actual amount of power envelope that's provided to the CPU and the GPU. But with an ROG NUC, because we don't have to worry about anything else and we maximize the thermal solution design, even though this is only a 3-liter system. So keep in mind, you can't even build a 3-liter system. This is an absolute monster of a powerhouse. That 290HX, right, giving you that higher performance PL1, PL2, higher boost frequencies than even the prior generation 270 series base chip on there. And this one also supporting PCI Express Gen 5. The prior model also supports the PCI Express Gen 5. And then, as I noted on the GPU side, this one will be with the 5090 base GPU. Okay, so that is going to be the ROG NUC 16 Edition 20. We did the chair. And what do I have there? Okay, I got a couple of last ones. Okay. Oh my gosh, I still have so many other products to get through, so we're just going to try to go really quick here. All right, so lastly here, let's do it this way. Okay, so we've got the ROG Saga Amni Hang Pal that will be actually made available. So this one actually, I believe, will be made available in two sizes, if I remember right. There's going to be like a small version and there's going to be a bigger version that'll be available. So keep that in mind. So if you guys want to be able to check this guy out. And there's also, of course, you can see some other figures that we've already released. So we previously had the standard ROG Omni figure, we had the white Omni figure, and then we, of course, will have the 20th edition Omni figure, which I think looks super cool in the black and gold. I think the ROG Omni with the black and gold looks super cool. And I love, which one's your favorite look? Right? Which one do you like? Do you like look 1, look 2, or look 3? I think the edition 20 limited colorway, I think that might be the coolest looking one. The retractable mask is pretty awesome because that's like one of the hallmarks, I think, of Omni. But I think the edition and limited 20 colorway, I think, is that might be my favorite. So that would be pretty cool if you can have like all the Omnis on there, right? And plus points if you guys have any of the other ROG Saga characters that we've released, like 7, or Horseman, or some of the other guys. I still think it would be so cool to have, of course, a complete lineup of all of the ROG Saga characters. But here is an update there with the ROG Omni Edition 20. Okay. Let me go ahead and see right here. Was thinking of TV size monitors. Right now we haven't had any roadmap to update. So previously, of course, we had ROG monitors that went to the 42 and 49 inches. But to be frank, I think we saw too much competition from the community kind of not recognizing the value propositions of understanding the difference between a monitor and a TV, right? A lot of users that were using just TVs and they had the aggressive pricing that you could see on TV promotions were just like, they would just look at always the TV and they would say a TV is a better option. And I don't agree with that. And I think from a design and feature standpoint, having a TV that had things like DisplayPort, we had higher refresh rates available. There was actually USB connectivity that was available to them. There's a lot of other things that were built in. I mean, I think one of the main differences, as well as also the inherent benefit that you have of things like sleep and hibernation actually working correctly on a monitor versus they don't work well on a TV. There's even hacks that people have had to try to run and configure for that. There's a lot of different things, but as of right now, there's nothing in our development roadmap that would say that we have any focus on wanting to have, I think, larger displays than what we traditionally focus on. So right now, I think really we're going to continue, at least within the gaming focus, you know, we're going to have esports based displays that go down like 24 inches, then you go to 27 inches, then you go into 32 inches, 34 inches, and then we will, I think, continue to always evaluate ultra wide based options. So those are going to be like your 34s, your 39s, or maybe even potentially larger than that. As of right now, the largest that we have, because we haven't updated our 49 inch based ultra wides, is going to be the newest 34 inches that we just recently launched, right, with the new QD OLED panels which feature the pure RGB stripe technology. So yeah, that's I would say the maximum where our focus is at in terms of actually monitor size. But as always, we'll monitor the feedback from, I think, the community, and we'll let that be, you know, the dictators as far as what we'll do. So guys, I don't want to spend too much more time there because we got so many other things that I still need to talk about. There was a couple of other updates, right, that we had in Edition 20. We of course also have the luggage, we have the backpack that we also released. We also have the actual. I really love it because I'm a really big tabletop fan. But we actually have an ROG Saga tabletop game, which is actually really cool. Which I think if you guys want to check it out, also check that out as well. So, but that rounds out pretty much all of the Edition Series 20 products that we have. There is also the limited version of the ROG Ally update, which I'm not covering the ROG Ally because here on our stream we generally only try to focus on the OPBG series of components, right? But the ROG Ally has an entire kind of update in terms of kind of design features where we incorporated an OLED display. There's actually quite a number of other little updates that comes in there, and that also come bundled with the new actually ROG R1 glasses that we also have available. So if that's your vibe, then we'll also have that as an option, so you guys can check that out there. So that wraps up all of the 20th anniversary products. So let's go ahead and just try to get through I think just some of the other updates. So I'm going to go through displays here really quick because I think displays were, there was a lot of stuff that we announced right there. So let's just go and get into that, guys. And again, if there's more questions there, let me know. But we've just got too much to pack in here, and we're already over. I think the last Computex stream also ran pretty long, but I'm going to do my best to see how much I can get done here in a short period of time. All right. So next one, let's go ahead and talk about the ROG Strix OLED, the XG25 QW PG Ace. I think this is a really exciting update. So, you know, for a lot of people, they had been really wanting an option like this. So where we had seen that when OLED had came to the market, while we have had, of course, ultra performant based OLED displays, right, 240, 360, 480, 500, 540 hertz options, and all of those have been great options. And we even have things like the aspect ratio mode to let you run smaller window sizes like 24-inch. We'd had actually a lot of the kind of competitive players that, because of that optimal field of view and not wanting to even have kind of like an aspect ratio mode, had wanted an ultra high performance kind of esports kind of focus based competitive display. So we're really excited to be able to announce this option, which is going to be our first OLED Ace-based display. So this model will be a compact 24.5 1080p based display, and it will be ultra performant and add a lot of actually really interesting ways. So one is you're going to have that ultra high refresh rate of 540 hertz, actually a little bit even tighter response time than you traditionally have with most standard OLEDs. Most standard OLEDs are a 0.03 base millisecond response time. This is even a little bit tighter, a little bit lower than that like that. But this will also introduce a couple of new things that you'll see on other monitors that I'll talk about. One of the first updates is going to be that the team worked actually quite lengthy to be able to continue to optimize kind of the power delivery design implementation. Part of the reason why we were doing this is because we want to be able to maximize the overall thermal efficiency of the monitor. So you might not realize this, and I've talked about this in the past before, but one of the contributing factors to burn-in on a display is actually thermal ramping. The hotter the actual OLED substrate material gets, and the adjacent kind of circuitry that's there can also actually create heat pooling, can also help to actually contribute to OLED burn-in. This is the reason why when we first actually made the first OLED monitors compared to other companies in the marketplace, we were doing things like advanced heatsink based designs, because we knew that actually being able to actually have better consistent thermal performance on our actually OLED panels would actually help to reduce burn-in mitigation. And we've continued to evolve this not only through the actual venting, but the heatsink designs, to firmware management, to things like the neo proximity sensor. But one of the things that we've also implemented here, even actually things actually like keeping in prior generations, having the AC adapter be external versus having the AC adapter be internal, where some competitors actually would put it on the inside, and we balance out going, actually we don't want to do that because that will even add more internal heat, right? But us moving over into GaN-based power solutions allows us to actually have even better thermal efficiency, more compact base size, and again, this provides a benefit along with some rework to the overall thermal design. So this, and also combination with the new enhanced neo proximity sensor, so kind of think about this like the second generation, which will even have more customization to be able to fine-tune how it actually works and implements, will again contribute to the overall kind of resiliency to be able to mitigate against burn-in on the display. You also have a revamped new OSD menu, which is really, really nice, easy to access. Of course, you don't have to use any physical controls. You can use our Display Widget Center software, which allows you to go ahead and customize everything in the display. I love doing app profiling, which is great, so you can set specific color profiles to specific games or applications. And that is built into the board. There'll be 3 different color presets that'll be available that have been optimized for esports. We also have markered measurements that'll be available on this panel. So let me see. I think right here, you'll see kind of a little bit within the kind of the imagery, but I can actually show. I'll show the bigger video. Well, it's fine. I'll just leave this one showing right there. But one of the other really cool elements with this panel is actually the luminance performance. So compared to the most HDR displays, even the ones that are rated for like HDR peak 1000 nits, generally they have kind of an optimized true black setting, and the true black setting is generally the bit more popular setting for HDR gamers. Most displays have generally been HDR 400 rated. Some of the latest generation panels have been HDR 500 rated. This is going to be a very, very bright panel. It's actually going to be the brightest OLED panel that we'll have in our entire lineup, with an HDR 600 based rating. And actually, in terms of peak luminance performance, in a 1.5 5% window, it'll actually be up to 1700 nits. The SDR brightness as well as actually will be notably brighter than most of our standard panels. Most standard panels are usually about like 250 to maybe 300 nits. This will be actually almost around 400 nits in terms of actually SDR full screen brightness. So this is actually really nice for having a super vibrant, super punchy based SDR based display experience, and absolutely monster HDR experience. And then on top of that, even if you don't have a system that's powerful enough to get all the way up to the 540 hertz, it will still continue to have our class leading BFI implementation. So the BFI technology is our black frame insertion, which also works really, really well with this panel being really bright. The advantage of that is that you could run in the 1080p mode, run that at 270 hertz. But with the BFI, you get the effect of almost the same motion clarity of 540 hertz. It's a little bit of a penalty that you get in terms of the actual input processing, but that input clarity, that motion clarity experience benefit, I think is absolutely outstanding and great if you don't have a system that's powerful enough to be able to render that native ultra high refresh rate, you know, in that 400, 500 plus, right, FPS based category. So the BFI technology is not something to sleep on. And again, this unit will also have that BFI technology support. So I'm a huge fan of having the BFI present here, along with the increased luminance performance that this monitor also is going to be bringing to the table. Now, there is also a couple of other little things here that I did want to show. Let me see if I have it here. On the display side, do I have the secondary images here? Yeah, I think I have the secondary images. Okay. So this will have the ultra compact base design right here. This is actually even a little bit revised from the standard base design that we have already on the compact XG based models. But we do have actually a lot of markers that we actually have here on the display. So you actually see there's markers right here. There's markers right here. There's actually markers on the side. So this can be really nice whether you're kind of positioning and focusing it in a very specific way and you want to have that consistency of knowing exactly where you're making those marker adjustments. You can use those actually integrated markers that we have actually on the display. You get the Aura RGB lighting, which is nice there. Pass-through routing support. You're of course going to have the threaded mount at the top of the unit if you want to be able to put a camera light or a microphone or anything like that. Here you can also see those measurement markers that we have on the side. Now, one thing a lot of people don't realize that we did on the prior ACE monitor, so our 610 hertz based ACE display, is that we had optimized also the height adjustment. Most monitors, while they can have a similar kind of max height, they actually don't get actually that low. But what we have noticed, especially in the more competitive players, is that you might go really tight, really focused on your field of view. And so in that regard, you actually might want to bring down the monitor and adjust it closer to your field of view for your face. So the actual base minimum height is significantly lower than that of other monitors in the market. And I don't think there's actually any OLED monitor on the market that offers this range of the height adjustment, including that minimum base adjustment, along with a slight kind of angular tilt, which allows it to be really focused at that field of view experience. So that's going to be a really nice addition. You can kind of see an example of that is how low the unit can get. And then you have that kind of tilt-in based adjustment that you'll have available to you. So yeah, this is, I think, going to be a really exciting display. Again, if you're focused on motion clarity, that pixel response, an amazing actually SDR and amazing HDR gaming experience, I think is also going to be a fantastic base option. So this will be our flagship ACE-based display within our lineup. So we'll have a lot, of course, of options within this space. It won't replace anything, so we'll still continue to have the 1440p 540. We'll still have the 1440p 500 hertz. We still actually have, I think, foreseeable inventory for a while of the 480 hertz based option as well. And then we have, other options that'll be in there as well. So that is going to be the XG259 QWPG ACE. All right. So let me go ahead and quickly see any questions that might have come up right there. Yeah, for MC rating, I think if you're talking about for the motion clarity rating, we don't generally focus on doing the validation for the MC rating with Visa. I don't think we're really seeing a demand from users on wanting to have that motion clarity rating associated. I think if we see people that we can do that, keep in mind we already do a lot of validation ratings for a lot of the products, and we already work with very closely with, I think, gold standard groups like Blurtbusters, where we actually have Blurtbusters approvals and certifications, which to me I think are kind of the gold standard if you really, really care about motion clarity, more than the MC based rating. Okay. Yeah, Paskowitz, thank you in terms of that regard. So ASUS has a 3-year warranty. So Yes, you're correct in terms of actually there are some competitors out there that actually only have like a 1-year warranty for their products. And keep in mind that for actually our OLED monitors, ROG not only has a 3-year warranty, but actually on our ProArt ecosystem, we've recently extended ProArt based OLED monitors to actually have a 5-year warranty with registration. So actually comprehensively, we have the most comprehensive warranties in the industry when you're looking at our monitor solutions. So definitely, I thank you for kind of calling that out right there. Okay, so let me go ahead and go into the next monitor that we have right here. So that was going to be the, of course, the ASUS display. So here we're going to give the update for the PG, the UCWM monitors. So these were, of course, previously announced at CES, but what people didn't know that we were working on was also going to be that we were going to have a 32-inch variant. So there's actually going to be 2 versions that we're going to have available. We'll have a 27 version, and then we'll have a 32 version. So for those of you guys that are going to be paying attention to this segmentation, keep in mind that it's going to get a little technical here on a secondary refresh monitor that we'll have that makes you kind of go like, oh, maybe I might want that monitor. So just keep in mind there's going to be some details that we're going to go into here. All right. So we've got the ROG Swift OLED, the PG27, and the PG32. These are effectively the same. They're utilizing the latest generation pure RGB stripe and then tandem OLED panel technology. So both of these are going to be essentially leveraging that that new panel-based technology. And then in terms of kind of the core specifications, we're pretty much going to be looking at the key same specs across the board there for these guys. It's just going to be the slight difference in terms of the PPI that you're going to have at either 4K at 27 inches or 4K at 32 inches. So these are kind of the closest monitor that we had here is we already had the PG27 UCDM, which was a QD OLED version, which we still offer that. That's a 4K 240 Hz QD OLED based monitor. Now, comparatively, we also now have this essentially pure RGB tandem based offering. This one, technically, you could say, will then have almost comparable performance in terms of the color saturation. It will generally have brighter luminance performance, and then it also has the better text rendering performance because of that pure RGB subpixel technology, right? These will also have, I would say, superior actually clarity for the actual panel because these will also be using our true black gloss coating. Keep in mind, compared to a QD OLED based panel, the true black gloss coating is going to be a zero haze coating, so it's even clearer. There's actually better black depth perception, and you don't generally have the ambient light handling color shift that you have within a QD OLED panel. But if you have controlled lighting, you might not even consider that a factor on the QD OLED based variant. And again, that's a fantastic display. It's an award-winning display. A lot of people in the community absolutely love that option. We will continue to offer both. It just comes down to which one's your choice. So again, with the new tandem technology, you're also going to get the improved lifespan, the luminance benefit, and then the color volume. But keep in mind that the wide subpixel based variants that we've had in the prior generation, so the non-tandem based monitor, the non-pure RGB monitor, so not just tandem, but the pure RGB actually will still, the tandem OLED based options, so the tandem options that have a white subpixel will still actually get to a higher peak brightness. So if you care most about brightness, because the color saturation performance I would say is actually already very good in the prior generation. Some people are very sticklers and they'll compare and say, oh, the color saturation is better on the QD OLED based monitors. It is technically, but whether or not that's going to be as important to you as, let's say, overall luminance, that could be a factor. And there's going to be a monitor update that we'll have within the XG32 where technically it won't have the pure RGB subpixel, so it would actually have worse text rendering performance, but that's the same as all OLED monitors until we got into ones that actually offered pure RGB. That monitor will actually have better luminance performance than this monitor because it's going to have that wide subpixel. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as far as that monitor going to be available. But again, for the 27 and the 32, they will have the true black glossy. They will have the tandem pure RGB stripe. They will also be the first time that we've offered on non-QD OLED monitors the Dolby Vision certification support. They will also come included with the new GaN power delivery design that we talked about on the ASUS monitor, as well as the upgraded Neo proximity sensor, USB-C power delivery, all of our advanced OSD display controls, our OLED display controls. You'll also have BFI support on here, aspect ratio control support on here. And so you'll have, again, both the 27-inch version and then a 32-inch version. So pick the one that you want. These will also have the new updated ID design like we had on the Dash W and on the Edition 20, where you have that translucent back design. So if you really like that back design, then you will see those available to you. So again, 27 and a 32-inch version. These guys will be coming in Q3 timeframe in terms of the overall release cycle. So stay tuned in the not too distant future. I don't have finalized pricing projection, but I would expect this to generally align with the similar price positioning that we had with the PG27 UCDM, and then respectively the same price for this one as the PG32 UCDM Gen 3. So respectively, that should probably be like $10.99 and probably $12.99, although keep in mind pricing has not been finalized. Expect finalized pricing soon when we get ready to release these in terms of actually channel availability. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our next option here. Excuse me, not our next option, but our next update. As long as the PPI is big, so I think, well, you know, if you really care about PPI, then 27 4K is my preferred because, of course, that's tighter. Although it's been hard for me. I really like the XG27JCG, which well is an LCD. I absolutely love playing on that display. I even love gaming on that display because the pixel density is so good. The 5K at 27 inches is absolutely stunning. So for me, I've kind of been spoiled by that on the PPI side where, yeah, there's a lot of things I love about OLED, but I still love a lot of things on the LCD. Still, text standarding has been the gold standard on there. Along with that PPI, I still prefer that. SDR brightness has been better as well. So it just comes down to kind of your preference. But yeah, let's go ahead and go into the other update, though. It's going to be on this guy, which is going to be the, where do I have it here? The XG32. So this is going to be an update to our prior kind of OLED-based monitors. So we previously had, let me go ahead and put this in there. We had an XG32 series, which was an update to the PG32 UCDP. So that was the OLED 4K 32-inch 240 hertz based OLED monitor that also had the FHD toggle to 480 hertz. Now the two other monitors that we just talked about, those new UCWM models, also have that dual operating mode where you can go from the 4K 240 to that FHD at 480 hertz. So this monitor will keep that. We actually had this in two different versions. We had a 32-inch 4K 240 and then the FHD at 480, and then we also had a secondary one which was a 4K 165 and then FHD at 330 hertz. So this one will only be one update version of this, but it takes kind of the base upgrade that we had on that update, which was predominantly to introduce the new True Black Glossy coating, which was the first time we introduced that True Gloss Black coating. But the main update here is we're going to shift from that being that older just WOLED to here this will be the WOLED, but with tandem. Now it won't be pure RGB, so keep in mind that if you want the pure RGB tandem, then you go to the PG32. If you're okay with just the WOLED with tandem, then you would go with the XG32. The interesting part about the XG32, though, from us, like I said, a performance specification standpoint, would predominantly be that the actual luminance performance will be a bit brighter because, again, this one will have that enhanced subpixel structure. Well, I won't say enhanced subpixel, right? Because technically it depends on what you're prioritizing, right? Because the pure RGB would be better in terms of, like I said, text rendering, and that's what I would probably prefer. But if you really favor that brightness benefit, then that's where that could be interesting. That this, not only being cheaper, of course, because keep in mind we had that prior monitor was a couple $100 cheaper than the PG based version. Here, this one will give you a HDR True Black 500 rating compared to the 400 rating, and then you will also get a peak HDR 1500 nits, right? So this one will be a brighter option, and then also still keep the True Black Gloss coating as well. So this will be another update. So there's quite a number of updates that we've released literally just in the last couple of months. So there's a lot of new updates in terms of the 27 and the 32 inches with a lot of variances between kind of PG versions and XG series versions. But I think this will be a great addition, especially for a lot of people on kind of like, I think like the price to performance value arc, still getting a really, really great monitor, very bright display. This could be, I think, the best option if you really care about luminance at the price point for a 32 inch. So I think it'll be a very, very popular option that we'll have within the lineup. Okay. So a couple of other monitor updates that we have there that I'm going to throw into since we went through the Edition 20s is let's go through these guys. So a special one, this one I think is going to be pretty cool. This one's like, it hasn't been 100% finalized in terms of all of the kind of the spec on it, but I want to go ahead and be able to touch on this one. is this is actually going to be our first color e-paper secondary display that we're going to be releasing. So this will be the dual Zen screen, okay, color e-paper display, the MP13UC. I'm really excited about this option. So this is going to be a new generation e-color, be 35 hertz, 4096 base colors. Resolution is very, very high. It's over a 3200 base resolution on this, so it's actually extraordinarily sharp. So the resolution and the actual size of the display at 13 inches, it's actually going to be over 300 ppi, so it's actually one of the sharpest displays that we have. Now, if you've ever looked at an e-paper display, one of the really benefits is just how soft and pleasing they are to look at. Really, really nice for things like text, email, just a wide variety of content where you're kind of looking at something. If you also wanted to kind of use this as like a base picture frame, if you're not actively changing the content on the display, pretty much almost doesn't use any type of actually power. So if you just kind of have like a static picture frame, it's actually kind of cool in that regard, that pretty much has no active power consumption in that perspective. It will actually have a touch-based functionality as well, so if you actually want to be able to swipe or move through content, you can also have that flexibility present on this panel right here. Now, optionally, we haven't finalized, but there will also be a new stand that we have right here, which is the S01D. So this is actually a kind of hybrid foldable stationary type design stand that we have. This supplements the prior Zen screen stand that was sold as an optional accessory to all of our kind of monitors that have a threaded mount on the back that allow you to use our portable monitors with a fixed stationary display. It's got a lot of adjustment flexibility to it in terms of height and angle, and then also can be compactly kind of folded down to a really, really nice design. Of course, you have different rotation options in terms of if you want to go from more portrait to a landscape kind of orientation within this monitor. No finalized MSRP, but yeah, I think this is going to be a really cool addition, maybe like a nice cool secondary display, again, for maybe like text, website reading, emails, things like that. Or like I said, if you want to be able to have like a secondary display to be able to run in kind of that digital frame type of capacity, could be pretty cool. More details to come on this monitor when we get closer to its release. This was more of a generalized kind of soft announcement to be able to supplement what we have within the Zen screen lineup, but I think a pretty cool update right there. And how many of you guys actually have any type of e-ink based displays? Do you guys have any type of e-ink displays? I'd love to hear your guys' feedback on that side of the fence. Okay. Let me see. We also have a secondary update here to our 5K based displays. So this is actually going to be a lower priced option than the current XG27JCG. So we currently have the XG27JCG, which is our 5K 180 hertz QHD 330 hertz base display. That model has already been available. It sits alongside our ProArt PA27JCV, which is our ProArt 5K 60 hertz base display, as our two 5Ks. We're now also going to be offering another 5K base variant. This one will be coming in at a lower price point. So if you wanted to kind of value that 5K experience, but you didn't necessarily need that ultra high refresh rate for the 5K, then this could be a great option. You're still going to get the factory calibration experience that all ROG Strix displays get to. That's still awesome, 218 ppi, so super sharp. So this could make for a really nice kind of general kind of high quality gaming immersive type of display for that 4K, 5K resolution experience, right? 5K for that really sharp desktop experience and general productivity experience, and then still a really solid gaming display where 27 inches, of course, at 1440p is still great in terms of the sharpness, clarity experience, and you just get a slight reduction in terms of the refresh rate compared to the higher end variant, which is 320 hertz. So again, the highest end model, the JCG, is going to be the 5K at 180 with the QHD at 330. This one is 5K at 80 and a QHD at 320. Otherwise, pretty much most of the base spec is going to be the same. You still get the new cutting edge ELMB2, which is our most advanced version of ELMB, which is really impressive for the motion clarity experience. It gives you a really, really great experience with almost no luminance performance benefits, factory calibration, wide gamut base monitor. You have the USB-C connectivity on here with base power output delivery 15 watts on this monitor, but still nice to be able to supplement other kind of connected devices. So I think this is going to be a great addition. We don't have finalized pricing. Keep in mind that the current price right now for the 5K monitor on that one is going to be coming in at, it depends actually on promo, but it'll be at a lower price point than the current XG27JCG. I would probably estimate at least probably $100 less. Maybe it might be a little bit more than that. So the current JCG is $850. So maybe 750, or could be maybe less than 750. But I would approximate something in or around that range for the JCG. Excuse me, for the JCEG. All right, which will be the drop down version there. Okay, let's go to the Tough Gaming Monitor arm. So I don't have pricing for this one, but this will be this is a quick one. I just want to show you guys. All right, here we go. It's the Tough Gaming Monitor arm, the AASO2. You can see you've got a really nice clean base design, a little bit of the Tough Gaming, of course, iconography and logo right there. Nice C-clamp mounting system, really clean, easy to go. And you can just see right here, main difference, of course, is you're going to see that on the ROG base model, you have a little bit more of that premium design. It's, of course, got the red spring that's in there with that translucent base enclosing design. But here, in terms of the look, finish, functionality, usability, for a lot of people, this will probably even be a better option, right? And this should be rated, same thing. I think all this one should be up to 39 inches for any pretty much 39 up to 39-inch display. Should be no problems on that side of the fence. So this guy, haven't finalized the pricing or the release time frame, but this will be updated in terms of lineup. So we'll have the ROG base monitor arm, and then we'll have the Tough Gaming base monitor arm. Okay. ACE PG monitors. Okay, here we go. The XGs. Okay, yep. So let's go to another update here. This is going to be a portable display update. So we had already had a Zen Screen OLED portable display that we had, which was the actual MQ149CD. But for some people, they had kind of wanted an option that was similar to this, but maybe not as expensive as that monitor. So let me go ahead and kind of show you right now the OLED version. So this was the OLED version at $599, which was a dual 14-inch display, 16 by 10. So it was a nice kind of increase in that horizontal resolution, 1900 by 1200, 360 degrees, so you could lay it flat, you could do tent, you could do a lot of really cool. I absolutely love this monitor. USB-C, HDMI connectivity on this as well. Really cool option that we have, but $599, right? So this is going to be a bit more expensive. Of course, you had those dual OLED displays, which is really fantastic, whether you want to have a secondary stationary display or throw this in your bag for advanced productivity or use it side by side to a laptop. You can see you have the splint mode, the independent mode, the mirror mode, or the extend mode. So we said, okay, hey, let's go ahead and make something similar, a little bit lower cost, keep most of the same technologies, but we're going to go ahead and drop this down to an LCD-based configuration, and that's what we did right here. So we're going to go to an LCD-based variant with this model versus an OLED variant, okay? So this one you can see right here will be the MB14FCD, okay? So you still get that 360 foldable portable display, right? Still dual 14 inches, still 16 by 10, and still that 1920 by 1200, right? You also get the pass-through power. The pass-through power is really nice because that means that you can go ahead and connect the actual power to the monitor, and then the monitor will actually pass power back to that laptop, so it allows you to go ahead and charge that device and also receive power for that. Although you can also just power directly from your device to the monitor if you don't want to use the pass-through power, but the pass-through power is a nice update that we have on this unit. And again, from a configuration standpoint, pretty much you're going to see similar functionality. So still very sleek, lightweight. You have the auto rotation support for landscape or portrait-based orientation, 100% sRGB that's going to be on there, and you have, again, USB-C and the mini HDMI-based connectivity. And like all of our portable displays, these are also 3-year warranties. Many other manufacturers on their portable displays only have sometimes like a 1-year warranty, and some actually even have less than a 1-year warranty on their displays. The main benefit that I would say that you're going to have on the LCD is going to be, I would say, the luminance performance. This will have a bit brighter SDR luminance performance than, of course, the OLED based monitor. The OLED monitor has better contrast, and also, while it's not a full 1000 nits based monitor in terms of peak HDR, it still is actually, I think, a very solid HDR based monitor. So if you want to use it for content proofing are watching HDR-based content from like YouTube or from on-demand streaming services, that's where the OLED-based variant would also be a little bit stronger. But this will be coming in. We haven't finalized the MSRP, but I would expect this one to probably be around half the price of the MQ, the OLED-based version. Okay. Yeah, for the ROG monitor arm, yes, you're talking about, yes. I would probably, we don't have a finalized MSRP, but I think I saw some internal communication. I would probably expect it something like that. I would say probably like $100 less than the ROG-based monitor arm. Yeah, for the Tough Gaming monitor. Correct. But keep in mind, finalized pricing to be confirmed, so please keep that in mind. Okay, that's the MQ... the e-paper display, the XG. Okay. And we have, yes, 2 Tough Gaming displays here that I want to go ahead and touch on. So let me go ahead and touch on this one. All right. So the first one is going to be the Tough Gaming. And this one, again, is going to be a great choice for those that are going to maybe be looking for something that's going to be at a more aggressive price point. Maybe you're not ready to kind of jump into OLED. You got a little bit more of a limited budget, but you're looking for, I think, a really nice upgrade. We've talked about a couple of these different options as of late within our kind of stack, including some of the new dual mode based LCDs that we've recently released, including like the XG27 UCGR, which I thought was a really nice update. This is going to be, I think, a pretty cool option that we're going to have within this one. So this is going to be the, let me bring up the image right here for this one. Sorry. There we go. All right. Okay, and yeah, this one right here is going to be the Tough Gaming, the VG27A AQML5F. And so this one, we're going to, in this monitor, there's actually going to be 2 versions that we're going to have. We're going to have a 34-inch, which would be a fast VA-based panel. And then this one, the 27-inch, is going to be a fast IPS-based panel. So 2560 by 1440. And this one will have a 320 hertz refresh rate. So it'll be a little bit of an update from the current, actually, Tough Gaming 5 series monitor, which I think we have an outstanding value on. We have a Tough Gaming monitor, which is a 27-inch wide gamut display, 300 hertz, which normally goes an MSRP of $299. We've actually had it sometimes on promo down to $200. So this one, I don't know what the finalized price is, but I wouldn't expect it to probably be more than about $25 to $50 more than what we currently have for the 300 hertz based version. This will have a new kind of updated compact based design that's going to be on this model. You'll of course have the display widget center support that's going to be on this unit as well. So that means you have the full OSD management that you can go ahead and be able to control kind of those on-screen display elements if you want. The 34-inch variant, which I'll show you the image for shortly, that one's going to have 34 inches. It's a 1500R curvature, so not a very aggressive case curvature on that monitor. Also going to be wide gamut. It'll have 95% DCI-P3 coverage, and then that one will actually offer a dual operating mode, which is going to be kind of interesting. So let me actually bring up the image here for the 34-inch. But the 34-inch will actually have like a half mode, which you can run it at 480 hertz at like a 1280 by 720 resolution or something approximately like that. Let me double check my notes here on that one. Here we go. Here's the Tough Gaming 34-inch. There we go. So this will be the 34-inch. There we go. And again, this one will be a fast VA-based panel. So yeah, 3440 by 1440 at 240 hertz, which will be the native race refresh rate. But then you'll be able to, like I said, have the doubled refresh rate at 480 hertz if you run it at the 1270 by 720 dual mode operating mode, right? Definitely that's going to be a little bit of a softer image because of course you're going at the non-native resolution for the panel. But again, it's cool to be able to have that kind of flexibility, and definitely that's going to be at that 480 hertz refresh rate. You'd also need a pretty beefy system, so actually being able to have that more balanced resolution out, if that's where you really just want to be able to focus on very kind of fluid kind of gameplay experience, from that motion clarity benefit. You have that, although you're definitely going to take a little bit of a penalty there in terms of the kind of the base PPI, where it just won't be as sharp. So there is a balancing act of trying to find that sweetness between the motion clarity benefit, but still keeping the PPI good enough that you can still maintain kind of all the detailing that you want within the image, right, within that aspect. So yeah, the VG34, 34 inches, fast VA, wide gamut base display, 3440 by 1440, 240, and then it has that dual mode operation at the 480 hertz at 1270 by 720. And then the 27 inch that we just talked about, again, that one's a 27 inch fast IPS 1440p at 320 hertz, which again is going to be a follow-up to the current model that we have, which is the 1440p Tough Gaming 5 monitor, which is a 300 hertz base display. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so I think that's all of the monitors. Let me double check here. Yeah, we actually, oh sorry, we have one other monitor here that I wanted to touch on. Another portable update that we're going to have on this guy. So this will be the ZenScreen OLED, the MQ14FCKV. So this is going to be, I think, a really nice update. We currently already have a larger version of this monitor that just launched, actually the 16-inch version. And so the spec, though, is going to be essentially very, very similar between these two, where these are going to be kind of our, I'd say, sweet spot portable OLED-based offerings that we have available. So these are going to both be 1920 by 1200 base display resolutions that we're going to have on these guys. The 16 inch is already available right now at $280. It's a 1920 by 1200 base image. This one is going to be the same thing. It's going to be smaller at the 14 inches, 1900 by 1200. It's 8 millimeters thick, 500 grams. It has dual USB-C, including USB pass-through support on this model. Supports our display widget center software, so you can control all the on-screen display settings without physically having to touch the monitor. Also, if you want to use it with like an Apple device like a MacBook, it does have our matching color mode with the M mode support there, so you can just go in, toggle the actual color profile to be consistent with Apple devices, but choose a custom P3 color profiling based system. And then it is going to be a wide gamut display supporting 90% DCI-P3, and it has factory calibration. We haven't finalized the price, but keep in mind this would be at a lower price point than the $280 that we have for the 16-inch variant. So you're going to have the more compact, even slimmer, kind of 14-inch base model at a lower price point, and then the 16-inch base model, depending on which one you want. So you can get the 14 or the 16, but I love this as also having as like a secondary display if I wanted to have for like a desktop or portable system. I think this is going to be a great option along with that 16-inch variant that we have. And then again, we have that dual mode LCD that we also have, which like I said is the dual 14 inches, which are dual 1920 by 1200s. And then we also have now the LCD variant that's also going to be another dual mode base variant in there. And then plus tons of other portable monitors that we have within the lineup. So I think that is pretty much all of the monitors. Let me see right there. Yeah, that's pretty much all of the displays. Okay, so yeah, we went through the Edition 20 products, the GPU 48 volt power demo, and then so the last couple of items that I just want to touch on here. I did talk about the Tough Gaming Z890 BTF, the Tough Gaming BA50. BA50-i. So I do have kind of three things I want to touch on. A really cool new LLM piece of software that we're going to be coming out with in the not too distant future, probably like in Q3, called ZeniClaw, that I'm going to touch on a little bit. But I want to touch on a couple of little cool mini PCs that we have. So some of you guys might have seen some stuff. So let me go ahead and show you guys some of the new cool mini PCs that we're going to have coming out. So the first one right here is going to be the Ascent QN10. So this guy is actually going to be the first actually mini PC that we're going to be offering that is utilizing a Snapdragon actually Elite SoC. So if you guys haven't checked out the new Snapdragon Elite SoCs, they're extremely impressive in terms of actually their performance per watt. and their actually overall computational performance. They go actually really, really competitively against even the latest generation of the Pancake Lake architecture or the Ryzen AI-based series units that we have. So right now, actually, ASUS will be offering pretty much an entire stack of pretty much all of the solutions on the market. So we will even also be having a new ProArt-based mini PC, which will be using the new RTX Spark-based SoCs that have also been recently announced. So we'll have essentially this Ascent, which will have the Snapdragon X2 Elite-based SoC. We then will have the ProArt, which will be using the RTX Spark SoC. And then we're also going to have the, of course, the Nook 16 Pro, which has the Panther Lake-based SoC. And then we also have, of course, the Ryzen 300 series and 400 series mini PCs under our Expert series line, which will be the PN54 or the PN55. For this guy right here, pretty impressive in terms of not only the computational performance on die. There's actually some really cool stuff that you can now do with local based package models that I think I'm actually going to highlight in like a dedicated stream that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. I think also what we're going to be doing with the ZeniClaw software, which will be a free software suite that we're going to be offering for a lot of people, that if you've heard a lot of stuff but you just think it's still too complex to do, I think this is going to offer some really kind of interesting pathways to be able to offer a few things. But this will have very, very ultra performance based memory. You can see 32 gigabytes of LPDDR 5X running at 9600 mega transfers right there. You'll have, of course, that super performant based SoC chipset. You can see a USB 2 port, Type A port, 10 gigabit Type A port, 40 gigabit Type C port, and another 40 gigabit Type C port, 3.5 millimeter jack on the rear, 2.5 gigabit networking, HDMI, 10 gig, and another 40. So you get dual 40 gig base connections on this option on this model. So this will be coming out, I think right now the projection is probably going to be by the end of this quarter, probably the beginning of next quarter. You will also have dual M.2 SSD support that's going to be in this model, of course, along with Wi-Fi 7. They'll be on here. So this will be the Ascent QN10. More information. If you also want to get like a rough approximation, you can see some benchmarking on some of the actual ASUS laptops that actually have been recently launched that do have this actually similar SoC based chipset. Keep in mind that there's actually two versions of the X2 Elite based chipset. There's the Elite Extreme and the standard base model. This model will still come with a very high end base CPU, but it'll be one step short of the Extreme based ones, which offer even a higher level specification support. One of the other mini PCs that we'll also be coming out with here is going to be the ProArt based mini PC. This one I'm excited about because this will be the first mini PC that we will be offering. They'll have a native 10G based connection on this guy. So if you guys probably heard of it, there of course is the new NVIDIA RTX based Spark, right? Which of course leveraging the Blackwell RTX based GPU, and then of course the NVIDIA Grace CPU, right? There's some integration, some cool stuff that's in there. This will of course have unified memory architecture that's built into it. Allowing for very high, of course, bandwidth-based operating performance. You can kind of see it, just a bit of the ID design that we're going to have on this unit. Now, one of the cool things, like I say, in terms of the actual specification support, if we actually scroll down right here, is you actually will have PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSD support, which, keep in mind, actually all of the kind of modern units are actually all supporting, which we were the first in the market to support PCI Express Gen 5 on mini PCs. So the GR70 actually has PCI Gen 5. The Nook 16 Pro has PCI Gen 5. The ROG Nook also has PCI Gen 5. So yeah, there's quite a number of models that are going to have PCI Express Gen 5. Wi-Fi 7 that's going to be built on here. 20 gigabits. That's pretty cool that you have 3 20 gigabits base ports on this unit. Then you're also going to have PD input support, which is actually going to be pretty cool, which I think is pretty slick in terms of that, because not too many units right now, like our PN55 is the only other immediate unit that has PD input support, meaning you can actually power the unit directly through USB power, as opposed to actually a discrete actually power solution design. HDMI 2.1 and then 10 gigabit connectivity, which I think is going to be pretty sweet on this unit as well. So yeah, that's going to be another just kind of soft announcement that we had there for that unit. Okay. I would say if going into the whole going into the DGX. So if you want to check out that information, there's a whole dedicated webinar stream that we actually have on our unit. I would say One is the cost factor in terms of actually the deployment configuration. If you don't need the 4 TB, I would say ours is going to be priced a little bit more aggressively, but we have a really impressive actually thermal design. We also have actually a magnetic stackable based deployment system configuration. There's some other really cool stuff that we're doing. I would recommend checking out the dedicated webinar that we have actually on the GX10 if that's something that you're actually interested in checking out. So check that out if that's something that you want. Okay. So last but not least here, ProArt Mini PC. Not working. Yes. Okay. This will just be a little bit of soft teaser, and then we'll round out with one last item right here. But this won't be finalized. Still a little bit coming to kind of come, guys. But we do have actually already a soft announcement for the Wi-Fi 8. So this is actually going to be for kind of an update to, I'd say, our current flagship-based products. So we currently have the Zen Wi-Fi BQ16 Pro. There's also actually the BT10. And then we have also the BT8 and the BT6. So this will be actually our first announced Zen Wi-Fi based solution with Wi-Fi 8. And you can see right here, this will be the BN12. So there's going to be more details to come out, but this will have 10G based connectivity across a Wi-Fi based chipset. So again, this will be sitting in the landscape of kind of like our highest performing kind of mesh Wi-Fi solutions. I think the 2-pack configuration, though, we're rating at even a broader level of coverage in the prior generation. I think the 2-pack is being rated for something like 7,000 square feet of coverage, which is pretty insane because normally you would have to be looking at like usually like a triple pack for usually greater than 6,000 feet or really high performance coverage from only a 2-zone pack. But that's not unprecedented because we already have 2-pack configurations within like the BQ16 or the BT8s that have been able to offer ultra high coverage. So it's not to say that it hasn't been achievable, but this offering up to that 7,000 square feet projected coverage within the 2-pack configuration just kind of goes to show you again kind of the range and the coverage zone that will be offered within the Wi-Fi 8 ecosystem as they're kind of coming to market. So yeah, that is going to be the Zen Wi-Fi BN12. All right. So the last item here is we're just going to go through a little bit here on ZeniClaw. So this is going to be just a little bit of kind of an early teaser. But I'd love to know for you guys, how many of you are running kind of any type of, let's say, agentic based kind of LLM modeling. So a lot of guys I think are already using, maybe like on your phone, you might be using Gemini, or you might be using ChatGPT, you might be using Copilot. Actually, I like using Copilot a lot within the web browser. Different options, but of course, you know, there's also Claude. There's a lot of different kind of options. There's different types of models. I also have personal setups where I'm running actually some local LLMs as opposed to doing anything cloud-based, and then I download the information, I customize the front end, and kind of do some other stuff. The reality is, with a lot of different modeling and wanting to even put guardrails, privacy, and be able to kind of structure things, for some people it can still be pretty complex to figure these things out, which is why I think some people, the only thing that they're really doing is using cloud-based agentic kind of models, right? So they go into like an app and they just go to ChatGPT and then they ask. But to have more advanced functionality, they're generally going to be then dependent on specialized subscription services or kind of going into more complex setups. So one thing that actually our team has been working on is actually developing kind of like an advanced chatbot agent front-end software suite that we will be offering that will be called ZeniClaw. So the cool thing I'd say about what we're going to be doing here with ZeniClaw is going to be trying to simplify the experience for users to be able to kind of leverage things and then be able to really control whether they want to be actually have it go online. Do they want to be able to do things kind of a cloud assistant based modeling, or do they want to be able to execute things on a local based model, right? And then still be able to have the flexibility to easily switch between kind of different models in a nice kind of front end UI. The goal was really to have kind of like a minimal like 4-point kind of setup process, right? So that pretty much within like 3 clicks you could be executing something versus kind of going like, oh, I don't know how to download this container or how to expose this API key, or is my API key not exposed, and then do I have to worry about privacy things that I might not even be aware of? I don't even know how to account for these things. There can be a lot of kind of variability within these kind of situations. So let me go ahead and give you a little bit of a recap here, but I think I've got little kind of example video that I can kind of show right here. So you'll see this will be kind of the front end software experience. Again, this will be offered for free. That will be made available, right? And again, you know, with the broad number of our systems that we'll have available, the cool thing is, of course, you'll have the flexibility to be able to set up your deployments kind of on the device really easily. So maybe you've got an ASUS mini PC, maybe you've got an ASUS desktop, right? And then from there, we'll have a number of kind of preset skills, and then we also have corresponding actually models to be available that you can go ahead and select. And then the benefit is, again, is that you're going to be able to kind of dictate whether you want to be able to do things locally or do you want to be able to leverage the cloud. And I think the local component will become even more critical, especially if you want to be able to take advantage of things where you don't want your information to be kind of scrubbed by other services, but you still might want to be able to leverage a lot of these cool things like maybe document processing or photo indexing referencings, or even like advanced recommendations compilings, right? But you will have everything being run on your device, and then you also don't have to worry about tokens or subscriptions or things along those lines, right? I'm definitely a fan of that if you talk about sustained cost over time. So you can see a little bit of an example of kind of the front Edo model right here. You can see an example of here how it's actually generating. It says, hey, I've got PowerPoint already installed on my system. I want to be able to actually generate a deck, and then you could actually have it go through. It'll run through all of that prompt. It'll index all of those items, and then be able to do that all within that front-end environment. And then you can see right here how you have your session and your modeling. So you can see right there, it's actually leveraging different models. You can go in and you can select the different models, and you would have that available to you. So really, really cool. Very simple, very easy. We have a couple of different videos that actually show different kind of scenarios, everything from kind of normal like what we call life assistance, or actually work-based assistance, different types of options that complements different types of skill sets, right? And again, just making it really simple, really easy for people to be able to use. So actually, I think this is pretty cool, pretty exciting. I love the fact that, again, it's going to be at no cost, being open provided to users. There'll be more information that'll be kind of coming out about ZennyClaw. I'm going to leave a link for you guys in the chat right now if you guys want to actually check a little bit more information about it. But I think this is going to be a cool kind of value component that we've added in. And I think the other kind of cool part to this is that our approach at some of the things that we've done within kind of generative AI and LLM modeling, even on the GPU side, a lot of people don't realize that, like in our latest generation GPUs, we did LLM tuner, and we did also Muse Tree. Muse Tree, which was really cool to allow you to actually do generative development on your GPU, but it was all local on device. You wouldn't have to use any cloud. There's no subscription modeling. You could just download your actual model, run your models through your GPU. And so if you wanted to be able to try or test something, you could do that all in the privacy and the anonymity of your own network and not have to rely on external cost factors, subscriptions, accounts, or all those things. Really, really cool option right there, and that's available actually with current series ASUS-based graphics cards if you have the Muse Tree software. And then we developed our LLM tuner software, which also allowed you to go ahead and move away from, let's say, generative AI into LLM-based modeling indexing that you could also run on the GPU. So two front-end pieces of software that focused at kind of you being in control, you being able to do things on device, and this is kind of now the next extension, but also being able to add in the hybrid flexibility of doing not only on device, but also being able to leverage cloud componentry based on whether you want to scale things out, the feature set, the functionality, and other elements. So some cool stuff there. I think I dropped it in the chat. Did I drop it in the chat? I did drop it in the chat right there. So let me lastly see if there's any questions right there that come up there. Okay, I think that comes up. Hey Elijah, thanks for joining us here on the stream. We're actually on multi-stream, so you might not be seeing the people that are actually watching us on X, or the people who are watching us on YouTube. So depends on the different feeds right there. But overall, I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the stream today. Fantastic to be able to go ahead and go over on everything that we've had from Computex. A lot of different stuff. You guys also, if anybody has more questions on different products that we didn't, I think I covered probably almost everything that we did cover for the most part at Computex, minus some of the stuff on the systems related side, because again, on our streams, we focus on the PC DIY side. Feel free to go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. I'll do my best to go ahead and follow up there. You can also check out posts that we've been dropping in the ASUS community tab for different types of products that we have coming out, or kind of asking questions from you guys. So definitely recommend to check us out there. You can also check out that little QR code to join us in our ASUS PCDIY community. So it's a great community of fellow PCDIY enthusiasts. We talk about all things ASUS PCDIY related there. So everything from our motherboards, graphics cards, coolers, chassis, power supplies, networking, monitors, peripherals, whatever it might be in there. If you just want to be able to kind of share your thoughts, feedback, be able to find out what we have coming down the pipe, all that kinds of stuff, feel free to join us there. It's a great community that we have of fellow PCDIY builders. And of course, while we didn't do it in this week's stream, that's also where I'm sometimes leveraging information for our PCDIY builder, as well as our Upgrade Builder Spotlight, which I'll share links in the description for those of you who want to submit either your recent upgrades or your builds to be able to be featured here normally on our weekly stream. So with that, guys, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, and best of luck with your guys' builds. Fantastic to be able to have you join us here. And hopefully you guys let me know what was your favorite thing that we announced at Computex 2026. And with that, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Quick one, I'll say, I missed the price and availability. We haven't finalized the price and availability for that. What I can tell you is tentatively, keep in mind this is only tentative, things may change. But as of right now, I would probably expect the availability for this to probably be in August for that new XG Series 32 base display. And we should be rolling this as kind of like a transitional base replacement. So the current XG 32, if you check it right now, we of course have been running promotions on it. For the there's two versions. There's the UCWMG and then there's the UCWG. So the UCWG is the lower end version, which has been, I think, price promo down to like sometimes like $7.99. The WMG, which is the higher end version, which is the one that kind of, it would be, let's say, replacing that model, comes in a little bit more. The current kind of MSRP has been $10.99. Now you might see that monitor go sometimes a little bit a lower price because we're working to probably process out the inventory, but at a minimum we would probably expect that to transition and come in at that same price point. So if you, that kind of makes sense, because if you take a look right now where we're at the current product stack, the new PG 32 UCDWM, which would be the pure RGB stripe with a tandem, should be probably coming in at $12.99, which will sit alongside the PG 32 UCDM Gen 3. So we'll have those two kind of at the $12.99, and then at that $10.99 we would have this new XG32. We'll probably still maintain some legacy inventory of those older XG32s for a little bit of period of time, so those will probably sit a little bit underneath that protective price point of $10.99, so maybe like $8.99, $7.99 respectively for those other XG32s. Plus there's a couple of other variants that we have from the QD OLED side that are 32s, like 32 inches, 4K, like 165 or something like that. So there'll be some other monitors kind of going from like, let's say $12.99, $10.99, and then like probably like $8.99, probably MSRP, and there could be like promo stuff, but that's roughly around that. And again, August time frame. Okay. All right. Yeah, that wraps up everything. We got one other person, Annie ETA on the RG Strix coolers. Should be soon. I think right now the last update that we had is going to be probably, I think, early Q3 time frame. So right now, you know, quarters breakdown: January, February, March Q1, April, May, June Q2. So that would move us into probably July to August. So I expect right now probably we're going to be looking at late July going into August time frame, probably for the Strix LC 4 series coolers. We will have a announcement on the live stream when it's actually ready to hit channel availability. So generally when we talk about the channel availability, I'll let you know actually what's the finalized price, when we actually expect to release it into channel, and that's usually within a time frame of like 7 to 14 days of when we've actually pushed it out to our partners, whether it's going to be like Newegg or Amazon, Micro Center, or whoever the e-tailers or retailers that we're working with for the launch. But we're still, I'd say conservatively, at least about a month, if not more than a month away from the Strix LC4s coming in terms of active inventory availability. There's a couple of other coolers that I think we have also coming in. We have an update to the Prime series coolers that we'll have, and those will probably be working alongside those new ROG Strix series coolers. Okay? All right, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye, guys.